Welcome to the Tenant Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here with my friend, my partner, known to many as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, the guy that shares the other half of our brain, Wes Brown.
Yeah, the one that got brain damage early on. Todd, how you doing, my friend?
Did you fall out of a lot of trees as a child?
I was drop kicked, I think, as a child.
Yeah,
it's like
got kicked by a cow.
I got bit by a Hawaiian girl one time, and then
what?
Yeah, so we were
for
on
what?
I don't know. Maybe I took her passy. I don't know. But
for what?
Pacifier. We was like 2.
Oh, okay.
I was living in Hawaii.
In some really weird direction when you said bit by a Hawaiian girl. So I didn't know this was like a childhood story. I anticipated this going some weird direction. Like we already kind of set the stage and it wasn't going to get weird. And it just got weird.
So. It just got weird. Oh, my friends that are listening, welcome to the podcast. I know sometimes we get weird. Tonight's going to be no exception. We're excited. And yes, I am the other half of the brain we share. But Todd, as you know, is the right brain, and I'm the left or wrong brain side. So, Todd.
So I don't even know where to go with that. Like, I shouldn't even set you up with this. Like, this has already gone a little sideways. But speaking of sideways, check this out, man. Because we're going to talk about some music related stuff this evening. It's not going to be fully music related, but we are going to talk about music with our guests. But did you see this article today about Ted Nugent?
No, not about Ted. What's up with Ted?
So Ted Nugent said he wants to give acquitted assailant Kyle Rittenhouse a lifetime supply of ammunition and start a gun training class in his name. What a dipshit
he is. So anyway, I'm gonna flag this as sarcasm, but you know what? It's great to be in America because evidently you can shoot anybody and get away and walk.
Such a fucking bullshit.
It just drives me insane.
He said on this podcast, he said, I'm going to get a hold of Kyle Rittenhouse and I'm going to provide him a lifetime supply of ammunition. And I'd like to begin the Kyle Rittenhouse tactical masterclass because as a young boy or as a young man, boy, did he do good. He knew that weapon. He was a samurai as a teenager that under those unbelievable, traumatic, and physically assaultive conditions, he did his job. He's not a fucking cop. He was a fucking punk kid that got dropped off by his mom with an assault rifle. That shit pisses me off.
Yeah.
He says some stupid shit, but I think this might be the last straw for me and Ted Nugent. Not that I'm a huge Ted Nugent fan by any stretch of the imagination, but his politics are just fucked up. That guy's a fucking grenade thrower.
Yeah.
And then did you see the new, have you seen this new Kid Rock video that he put out?
No. Evidently, you and I are looking at 2 different websites.
Well, I don't know how this shit comes across my social media feed, but yeah, he's got a new video called Don't Tell Me How to Live. This is the funny part of this shit. And I'm no Kid Rock fan by any stretch of the imagination either. People actually thought that it was a parody, that it was a Weird Al Yankovic parody, that he had done this video. And Weird Al had to clarify that it wasn't actually him in this video, that it's actually Kid Rock with this backup band. I think it's called Monster Truck, of all things, of course. It's a stupid fucking video. God damn.
Well, I think
just when you think it couldn't get any fucking dumber, it just gets dumber. So,
maybe we need to start a reaction YouTube channel because evidently you and I could react pretty well with stupid shit.
You know what? I never even, we're going to get to this interview, but I never knew about these things that was a thing where you watch videos. My daughter last night was watching a true crime thing. And I don't know who this woman is, but she was commentating and it was like I didn't like how it was set up because it was like 3 different storylines and they'd flip back and forth between the 3 of them. that doesn't work well with my brain. But it was interesting for sure. And I'm like, people get paid to do this stuff? I guess they do, right?
Well, they get sponsorships or, money off YouTube. It's, but anyway, I was watching, speaking of reaction videos, I was watching a few last night. One couple, African-American ladies that were, reviewing separately. These are two different ones doing a review of Dave Matthews Bartender, which blew me away. And then Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb. And neither one ever knew who Pink Floyd was by the second video, because one of them did Turning Away. She knew who David Gilmour was and assumed that he was singing. But she was totally blown away, very emotional, both of them, especially with Bartender and Comfortably Numb. So it was kind of cool. So I've caught a couple reaction videos, and yeah, they're kind of fun.
Kind of interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to look into that.
Wow, we just that was quite the sidetrack.
I know. We don't usually, well, we do go down these rabbit holes, but usually don't always start off like that.
Right.
Anyway, all right, let's get to it. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can always find out what we're up to via our social media on Instagram at Tenet Podcast and our Tenet Podcast Facebook page. And of course, be sure to check out our website, tenetpodcast.com. We're excited to talk with our next guest. She is content producer and strategist at PBS 12 here in Denver, Colorado, and she is co-founder and producer of Headroom Sessions. Welcome to the program, Elle Naef. How are you?
Hey, thank you. I already have so much to say about your intro in general.
Well, let's get right to it.
Yeah, because you're a producer, so let's get some critique in.
Well, I hate to admit it, but I had to look up Ted Nugent, and I was like, I know his songs, or I know his name, but what songs does he play? And it turns out he sucks. And then when I found out that Kid Rock's backing band was called Monster Truck, like, how can you not think that's a spoof?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
if somebody said come up with a spoof band for Kid Rock, I would say Monster Truck.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, totally get that.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
Redneck rapping, and God, we should almost fucking play a little portion of that. Can we get sued today, Wes?
Sure, why not?
You feel like a lawsuit?
Well, I think the first thing they're going to do is send you a letter.
Well, yeah, you get a warning, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not with Kid Rock and Ted Nugent. They just come to your house and shoot you in the face.
Oh, God.
Well, he does shoot a gun in this fucking thing. So
Kid Rock in this one?
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and, oh, God.
Let's indulge. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me see it here. Oh, here we go. All right.
Oh, the suspense.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll tighten this shit up.
Yep. Good. Since I'm slow on the draw.
Yeah, we're going to need some major editing. Thanks.
All right, here we go.
Oh, here we go. Oh. I don't know if I'm going to laugh or cry. That's the problem. I already hate it. Oh.
Monster Truck. Talking all that bullshit.
Bad riff off the bat. No, God, no. Oh my God, this is my purgatory music. He doesn't deserve a Black Sabbath shirt at all.
What a joke. What a joke.
That's not a spoof. How is that not a spoof? He's like going full circle. He's now ripping on Bezos.
Well, I think I've had enough, Todd.
Oh, but you need that final scene right there. That's necessary. What the fuck?
I don't know, but
Not allowed in life.
so how much of that do you want me to leave into the podcast, Todd?
What can we get away with?
You can probably get away with most of it because we don't play the whole thing.
So if Kid Rock shows up at my door with a shotgun, you might have to jump in, being the jujitsu master that you are.
All right, give me 6 hours notice so I can make it down there.
Grapple him on my lawn. You
I'll
could
take
wrestle. God, wouldn't that be a fucking video?
Right?
You could be grappling with Kid Rock on my front lawn. How
With
beautiful would that be?
With
Yeah.
that one riff playing the whole time.
Oh
There you
my
go.
God. Wasn't that terrible?
So
It
we
was
should
so bad.
critique that. So I love his use of metaphor.
Wait,
Jesus
was he
God.
the one who called Kyle Rittenhouse a samurai? 'Cause
That was Ted Nugent.
That was Ted Nugent.
That was the other guy.
That's some white guy.
Another Michigan.
Yeah, another
Detroit
Detroit kid.
Yep.
Mm.
And so I love the Detroit sound. If we're talking like MC5 and the Stooges and Alice Cooper, and like Alice Cooper, you know, he's a full on Republican, but you don't see him spouting a bunch of stupid shit. Not like Ted Nugent.
Glenn Fry was from
Glenn
From-
Fry. Yep.
from Detroit. Yeah.
Yeah, Kid Rock has been delirious for years. I didn't know he still made music, honestly.
Well, and
That's-
I think I heard, and I might be wrong on this, so fact check us, that he was planning on running for office.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. He was.
That's what we need.
Oh,
We need more entertainers in our political, system,
Yeah.
representing us.
yeah, it would be like a Kid Rock Tiger King collab for office is what I envision.
Yeah.
Those two things came across my feed in the last 24 hours. And I thought, this is the dumbest, this is really what we need right now. Like has been rock stars making stupid comments or releasing really bad music videos and music.
Yeah, this is why jaw rock should not exist.
Jaw rock.
Yeah.
What is that?
So
I'm going to write that down. Jaw, like
Jaw
J-A-W.
rock. Yeah. Like that shit we just listened to, that's jaw rock. Creed is jaw rock. I hate to say it, Mad Love, Pearl Jam is jaw rock, but it's that like sound.
So
This
clue
just
me in
keeps
on this category or this description.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard that terminology before.
Yeah, it's only sounds that I can describe it with. But it's like the rock where the vocalists use their jaw a lot, Like, let's use Creed, for example. I have no issues ripping on Creed. So I'm trying to think of a song. With Arms Wide Open, right? You know that song?
Yeah.
You know how he sings it like, with arms wide open, with his jaw?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's jaw rock.
Okay.
Jaw rock.
Yeah, I'm definitely checking that out. Deep dive on
it's-
jaw rock.
Now, is this something that you came up with, that you call it, or is that an actual term that gets thrown around?
I don't think I came up with it, but I'm Googling it just in case.
So fact checking yourself.
So jaw rock, I imagine it's mostly dudes, right? Are there
Maybe.
female participant or female artists that are considered in that genre of jaw rock?
Not that I've heard of offhand, but you know what? Equality. I'm sure there are shitty jaw rock musicians who are women too.
Okay.
But
So
I'm
it's guys.
Googling it and there's nothing. So I honestly don't know where I got this genre title.
Okay. Well, we're going to attribute to you. And now it's in our vocabulary from here on out. Wes and I will be utilizing that, and we'll give you credit.
Thanks. Just don't do it to Pearl Jam fans. They hate it. Metallica fans also disagree with this genre classification. So
Okay.
Just a heads up.
I thought I was pretty in tune and pretty hip, but I'm no longer fit into that category of in the know. So
apparently you neither, because I guess I made it up. I'll just duke it out with whoever told me the term.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because I'm not finding it. And here's the sad thing. So it didn't autocorrect to this, but when I hit jaw rock music, Jew's harp comes in. And I thought they got rid of that term.
What is that?
Do you not know what it?
No.
A jaw harp. That's why, because I think they're also known as jaw harp. It's a little device.
And you stick it between your lips.
Stick it in your mouth.
And then you have like a little thing that.
And then you go near.
It's a good impression.
So that's what came up. So wow, this is just really taking. I'm going to apologize to our normal listeners, because this is like totally out of your wheelhouse. You've come to really get used to us talking about fine art, and now we're talking about jaw harps and jaw rock, and
now Elle's here.
Yeah. So anyway, but hang with us because it's only going to get more interesting. There,
it is going to get more interesting.
Yeah,
so. Let's see what other rabbit holes we can go down. So jaw rock would be like singers that don't enunciate, like it comes from like kind of in the back of the mouth, maybe clenched jaw type of thing. Is that what I'm kind of gathering?
There you go. Yeah, I would say that sounds right. I mean, when I do it, I loosen my jaw.
Oh, so you partake in some of the jaw rock stuff is what you're saying.
Well, you guys try it. Try to make a Creed sound. Let me hear it.
Man, I'd have to listen to some Creed real quick.
With arms wide open.
With arms wide open. That kind of thing?
Yeah. Did you let your jaw go, or did you
it just kind of stayed there. I didn't even really go anything.
All right. Your turn, Todd.
Arms wide open. Kind of like that.
Well, that was like 2 in tune. You got a voice there. Good job.
Nice job.
But what did you do with your jaw?
I just kind of made. Usually it's Wes that does this. He does this grandpa voice. So I was kind of impersonating Wes Brown doing a Scott Stapp. That's a guy's name, right? The singer of Creed. Impersonation.
There you go.
Nailed it.
All right. That's awesome.
So to answer your question,
this is my grandpa voice, just in case you were wondering what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And Sunday I turned 60. So there you go.
There you go. 60's not a grandpa. Get out of here.
Well, I have 4 grandkids, so I'm technically a grandfather already.
Oh, you're literally
I was a grandfather at 40. So what the hell, right?
What the hell? Get the grandpa voice.
That's right.
Let's have the fun.
All right. Let's get to the meat of this here.
Have we introduced her? Did we actually introduce her?
We did, but because you're turning 60, you've already forgotten. So here we go. We're just going to prop Wes in the corner for the remainder of these podcasts from here on out. And we'll have to go to a video feed so that people can see the blank look on his face. No. So headroom sessions. Let's start off by talking about that.
Cool.
And maybe we should just cut out all the nonsense in the beginning, Wes, because
let's talk about it.
I don't need to give Ted Nugent any more press. He's just that guy that, that loves to, he's that dipshit in high school that loves to hear himself talk. Like there's nothing virtuous or intelligent that's coming out of his mouth. He just wants to say something and have it be heard. And it doesn't even matter if it makes sense or it's craziness. You just got to put it out there.
Yeah, he's like the annoying uncle at dinner.
That's what they call him, Uncle Ted, So
really?
I think Uncle Ted's cheese is like has slid off his cracker.
Yep. What was cool though was talking about reaction videos and then going into a reaction video.
Yeah, I think we can leave this in. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway.
So Elle, I want to start off by talking about headroom sessions. What are the headroom sessions?
Yeah, so headroom sessions are a live music series here in Denver. We welcome artists from all over the state, and it's a live music session for audiences, but behind the scenes, we provide 3 videos, 3 audio tracks, and a small photo shoot for artists. So we give artists an electronic press kit for free, basically.
Okay. So it's not just a video,
right?
You're putting together a whole promotional package for them.
Yep, exactly. So the audiences come to a show, and what they don't know is there's a whole marketing kit being created.
Okay.
Well, now they know.
So these things are live performances.
Right.
Or at least they were pre-COVID. Have you been doing them live during the whole COVID thing?
We have. We don't really have a full audience like we did before COVID. Before COVID, we would have up to 35 people. And now we just do the artists and maybe one guest.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I think in another interview that I heard that you were going to kind of go back to this format, but now with COVID ramping up again and mask mandates taking effect this week in most counties and Denver, I assume that's probably maybe changed. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just like a lot of venues, we're up in the air about it. I mean, if people will be cool and wear masks and follow the rules, I think we could pull off almost the audience we had since it was already small. But I'm not relying on it. So the nice thing about headroom sessions is it's the nice thing, and it's our biggest challenge, is that we're all volunteers and we run off no budget at all. So we'll survive no matter what, but it's a matter of growth at this point. So it would be nice to get, 10, 15 people in there who will pay their $5 that we charge and keep us growing. But we'll see. Yeah.
And this is a nonprofit?
Yeah. So we are a program of a nonprofit. The nonprofit is Recreative Denver. It's a creative reuse store. So it's like a thrift store for art supplies. And they also have a gallery and then a bunch of artist workspaces and a wood shop. So it's a creative maker space. And we are a program of theirs.
How did this all come about? How did this whole headroom thing come about?
Yeah. So I was living in Chicago at the time. And Matt, my business partner and friend, filmed a couple of his friends with a GoPro. And he noticed that in this art gallery, as I'm sure you've seen in many art galleries, the acoustics were just phenomenal. And so he would film a couple acoustic bands, and he noticed like, hey, this is production material. And during that time, I had been booking shows in Denver for about 10 years or so. So he said, I want to expand this. Can you help me expand this? It was one of the reasons I came back to Denver. And then so we started booking it just like a normal show. We would have 2 to 3 artists at a time, invite an audience, and record along the way. And yeah, we've been at it for 5 years since then.
Wow, 5 years. How many episodes have you recorded?
I don't know, Todd. Probably we have recorded over 150 bands. It's hard to say how many episodes off the top of my head because we went from 1 to 3 bands each episode. But probably around 75 sessions total with over 150 artists. And we're on the 3rd season of our PBS show. So,
wow. That's spectacular. And so no one is paid. This is just a passion project of yourself and your business partner, Matt.
Yep.
And then the people that are actually doing all the recording and sound engineering and all that, it's just a passion thing for them as well.
Yeah. So for a while, we were cycling through photographers and videographers. We had a nice lineup of them. And then once COVID hit, we took that into our own hands and became the videographers and the editors and everything. So right now, we're just a 3-person team. It's Matt and I and our sound engineer. And then we have a rotation of photographers.
Gotcha. That's really cool. So talk about, you told us what Headroom Sessions are about and what you offer to the artists, but what is the mission of the Headroom Sessions?
Yeah, so the mission of the Headroom Sessions is to make the music industry more inclusive. My background in music started with alternative white boy bands, like I've said in other interviews, and it became really telling like my third year into it. And I learned that these same bands were getting the same stages for years and years and years. And there was so much music being overlooked. Something I like to tell people to like summarize it that the talent buyers here don't love, but to summarize like how inclusive the Denver music industry is, the names of our main talent buyers are Scott, Jake, and Jeff, and probably another Scott. So it's not totally inclusive. It's a lot of dudes that were all in a boys club together. And we're overlooking so many genres, jazz, hip hop, R&B, for this kind of just young rock genre in Denver. So Headroom Sessions was born from my frustration with that, combined with my inspiration by the other artists that I was witnessing. And it came together in a mission that has lasted me through my career in Headroom Sessions and through PBS and anywhere I go.
So how can bands take part in Headroom Sessions? Is it something where you guys, they're on your radar and you reach out to them, or is it bands like sending you a demo, or how does that work?
I would say, so people are always welcome to send their music, and I absolutely do check that. But Matt and I are very active in the local music scene. We go to shows pretty much every weekend. I curate a lot of local music playlists, which encourages me to research artists that I don't hear at the shows. So usually I find them, but we have definitely had bands that emailed us that have blown my mind. So either way.
Okay. This always takes place at Recreative Denver, or you record in other venues as well?
It used to only take place at Recreative, and now they've expanded. They've done so well with their arts reuse store that they've expanded that into the gallery. So the artist workspaces are still there. They still have a killer First Friday celebration, but we, for Headroom Sessions, tour different art galleries.
I love that. And because they had expanded so much, and it's a place where a lot of artists go to get discounted supplies.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful that they're accumulating these things and upcycling it. You decided to bring these into different art venues.
Yeah. So we've always been, before Headroom Sessions, I was doing something called Denver Creative Movement. And the mission there was to unite visual and audio artists in a mission to get arts funded for schools. So Headroom Sessions was kind of born of that. And I like to continue that collaboration. So we tour different art galleries and are very intentional in putting the bands in front of art pieces so that we can combine those missions and show off multiple artists at once.
So does that mean that you and Matt are out and about all the time looking at different possible venues? How does that work?
Yeah, so yeah, we've both been to a lot in the first place, but we have been creating new connections with specifically art galleries. Again, I mentioned that Headroom Sessions was found and named after the openness of an art gallery and the acoustics it creates. So art galleries are our main focus.
Gotcha. You talked about booking bands. This started for you in your youth, like during high school. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started booking and managing bands in high school about my senior year. My high school had a lot of different bands come out of it. I'd say the most famous one is The Fray. We had a couple of members of that. And yeah, I was lucky to be in a high school where music and playing shows was basically one of the sports. So that's where I started.
And so did it just hit you one day, or what was the catalyst for that? That you were like, uh, I assume that you were always a music fan and you were surrounded by a lot of musicians. What was that thing that made you decide to do that?
Yeah, I know the exact trajectory, actually. I think about this a lot. I grew up, my brothers were moved out of the house when I was a child. They were older. And so I grew up basically as an only child, but with good music from the previous generation. So I would just listen to music in my room all the time. That was how I connected to the world, how I connected to myself. And then I remember the first school dance I went to where I was sharing this love of music with other people just blew my mind. It was this sense of community that I never knew I would experience. And I carried that on into high school. So it was something that I was already holding on to. So the fact that I was exposed to local shows and concerts while I was riding that high from middle and elementary school was just the perfect combination.
And what kind of things were you listening to back in the day?
It's such a blend. So I would go from like Mariah Carey to Rage Against the Machine, or like NSYNC to Garbage, or Lauryn Hill to Pink. It was a pretty big variety. And again, I credit that to having older siblings. I remember my brother would bring me just boxes of cassettes. And so I had Sir Mix-a-Lot before the Big Butt song was popular, or, the TLC cassettes. So it was a stark range between like rock and R&B.
Okay.
I like
And
that. I
just
like the fact that, you're well versed in lots of different genres of music and I'm the same way. I listen to about anything. I like rap. I like, some classical, very specific classical music. I'll open my mind up to pretty much anything. So, and give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still a little bit of a music snob and trying to work on it, as you saw through my whole dissertation on jaw rock. But I'm definitely grateful that I got exposed to different genres. And, it's funny because I'm coming back around to pop. I was so anti-pop after middle school and stuff, but I see a value in it. I can get down to pop.
Yeah.
like every music fan, I think if you're a true music fan, you tend to have an eclectic taste, right? And Wes just said it, you said it. I listen to a little bit of everything, though there's certain things, genres, obviously I gravitate more towards, mostly due to my age and my childhood, because I think people kind of go back to that all the time. But at the same time, I have children, so I'm constantly like hearing stuff that I've never heard before, mostly in the rap and hip hop genre of music, because that's not something I listen to a little bit of it, but not a lot, and definitely not fucking Kid Rock. Um, so that's always kind of interesting. And I do occasionally, I'll be like, there's some stuff I hear coming, it's probably just like my parents thought when I was living in their house, like, oh my God, what the hell is that? And then there's like, oh, I kind of like that. That's kind of catchy. you know?
Yeah,
And then,
totally.
I'll ask him, you know, who was that artist or whatever. But of course I'll forget like 5 minutes later, but you know, I think it's interesting, and I don't always, it's the music of his generation. So I don't want to, even if I dislike it, I don't want to bag on it. Right. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
totally.
his thing. It's his time, you
Yeah,
know, I
yeah.
remember how important music was.
Just as long as he knows not to play records backwards, you know?
Oh my God. Yes. And you're
Yes.
actually too young to even know about that kind of thing.
I have old parents, old brothers. I get it all.
You know, it helps when you have older siblings, right? To like expose you to music. And Wes and I didn't have that. I'm the oldest in my family as far as the children, and Wes was the only child. So we didn't have that opportunity of getting turned on to cool music when we were kids.
How I experienced music was my mom and dad had a huge 50s collection of 45s and LPs. And so I really cut my teeth on 50s and 60s music. And then they went country, and I kind of continued down the road of more progressive, you know, Pink Floyd and Rush and, you know, and Boston and BJ Thomas, and just to throw him in there. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of, and then I had, you know, friends who had older brothers that would throw me onto the, you know, whatever, whether it was the Monkees back in the 60s or whatever. But, you know, anyway.
Yeah, it can be a mixed bag, you know? It's not always good music, but
So
you can
the interesting thing I loved, and I used to study like who was in what band and progressions of bands. And unfortunately, I've lost a lot of that memory. But man, I just would always love to know, like, oh, who played on this and this song. And now it's easier to find out than ever because of YouTube. But like, who played guitar and who produced the record? Because, you know, like Dan Fogelberg, Joe Walsh produced a couple of his first records, and you're like, why would Joe Walsh be? You know, but they were all connected through Irving Azoff, I think is his name, the manager. And so it's just like, oh wow, I never thought of that. And then you find out, you know, who was in what band before the band became hit. And yeah, I just love that stuff. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm sure this is similar in the arts scene and the visual arts scene, but it's crazy how small the music industry is. People know people.
That's pretty interesting. I never thought of it that way, but I'm not really in tune to like the actual scene. Talk a little bit about that. Like, just working in the industry, you just meet so many people that you realize that, you know, you're like 6 degrees of separation. Is that the deal?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Especially in Denver. You know, Denver is not that big, especially in niche creative areas. So, yeah, if you know one person, you might be introduced to a quarter of the local genre, or even accidentally, like you get invited by one person to a show and you're meeting 50 more potential connections that are, you know, if you go to a restaurant, it's not 50 potential connections. But if you go to a show where you all have something in common, everyone there's a potential connection. So it's just finding slight niches creates a huge network.
Who's one person you've met that you never expected to meet?
Well, like I said, I used to work at House of Blues. I did backstage hospitality for Live Nation. So I met a lot of people. Oh, and forgetting his name, the first person that comes to me, but it's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
Oh, Tom Jones?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom Jones.
yeah. Never thought I would meet him. That was wild. And then
How was that? Was he nice?
no,
Oh, we cut the question. No,
his
he doesn't
tour
care.
was like the most stressed out tour I've ever seen in my life. And that was
Really?
also like a personal thing. So at House of Blues, have you ever been to House of Blues in Chicago?
No,
Not in
I'd
Chicago.
love to.
Okay, so it's 2 levels. I don't know if it's that way for everyone. I've only been to the Chicago one, but one's like a restaurant, more local music, blues area. The second one is a full blown venue, and that's where people like Tom Jones would go. And usually we have an elevator that goes between the restaurant and backstage. So when I was doing backstage hospitality, I relied on that elevator to get them food, to get them all their supplies. Well, Tom Jones, and I'm not going to blame it on him personally, but they blocked off the elevator for it because he had to dive right into it as soon as he was done. At the same time, they wanted 25 backstage meals. So I was running down four flights of stairs to get their meals while they were like yelling at me, like, where's our food? Where's our food? Spilling gravy just all down me, like running up and down, get them their food, have a giant grease stain they're disgusted by. Yeah.
So somebody actually mentioned the fact that you had some kind of grease stain on your clothes,
Yeah.
and that they're disgusted by it.
She looked at
like
it.
that.
She said, "That's embarrassing." And I was like, "This is your food."
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, what was nice about a lot of backstage production environments is that a lot of the people just are so used to that stuff. So in Chicago, it's great because, you know, they have that like East Coast mentality. Like in Colorado, people will kind of still kiss the musicians' asses. But in Chicago, they're like, no, you're nothing. So they would tell me, they'd say, you know what? Tell them to fuck off. Like, tell them no, tell them whatever you need to tell them. And that was empowering, like, for life in general, to have these backstage dudes be like, we've been doing this for 45 years. Give them the middle finger.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that your employer was like in your corner going, you know what? Don't take their shit. Just tell them to fuck off.
Yeah, that stage manager is still in my corner. Every time I post feminist shit, he's like, yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, there's some solidarity there for sure.
So I got to ask, why the hell did he need the elevator to run? Do like women? I know back in the day, women would like throw themselves. Like it was a crazy thing for a Tom Jones show.
I think
Does
that
it still
do.
happen, even though he's like, I don't know how old he is. He's got to be pushing 80. Maybe he's past his 80s.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were definitely a lot of bras on stage. I don't think that the stage is pretty high itself. So I think it was probably just accessibility, honestly, with the age he's at. He can't stand there and wait for it too long after a show. I don't know. I don't know what it was.
It's just weird to me. Like
some people just want to bail. Willie Nelson, when I seen Willie Nelson.
You're going to tell your Willie Nelson story.
Yeah, I'll tell my Willie Nelson. So we've seen Willie Nelson in concert. He's playing his last song as his bus is pulling into the arena. And he says, thank you. He gets on the bus, he backs out, and they're gone. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
So people just want a quick exit.
Yeah, I get that. That's me at bars. Like having fun, and I'm like, goodbye.
Sometimes I leave without even saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Like if it's going to be too much of a hassle and I'm over it, like I'll text them later and say, hey, sorry, I had to bail.
Yeah, I'm alive. Good night.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say.
See ya.
That's all I say. If I have contributed more than 15 minutes of conversation, I don't have to say goodbye. That's my rule.
I like that. I'm going to employ that.
I'll talk to you later.
We don't have to talk a bunch of dirt on different artists, but who is the nicest person that you've met in all your interaction with different musicians and rock stars or what have you?
There were a lot of nice people, so much so that this is kind of bumming me out realizing it, but the nice people kind of blend together and it's the mean people who stand out. That sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Well, it's just like in business, right? They always say that it's the bad experience that, people give bad reviews. It's rare that they give good reviews, but they'll always give a bad review if the service sucked or it was a bad experience, right? And
yeah, for sure. Definitely the moments that stuck with me were the shitty people. So, but I mean, the artists I work for that were nice, like 311 was super nice, which is, laid back people. we had a few R&B tours that were just so freaking nice. Yeah, a lot of super nice people, but just a couple mean ones.
Yeah.
One that surprised me, and I hate to make it negative, but was the singer of the Goo Goo Dolls. Because I like grew up listening to the Goo Goo Dolls, and that was like my soundtrack to what I thought love was. And then I met him, and I was like, love is nothing. He ruined it. It was crazy.
That's too bad.
It is, yeah. But he had one of those. Do you remember in the 90s when celebrities would wear like baseball caps and sunglasses and think they were disguised?
Right.
Yeah.
He was doing that, except he looked like all the stagehands. Like it was a good disguise. So I loaded him up in my van with the stagehands, and they recognized him. And he was like, what the hell are they doing in my van? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, you look like a stagehand. And he got so mad. And then, and I had to take him down to his tour bus. And then it was raining, and I had to pull up to the step on his tour bus because he wouldn't step on the ground. But again, I feel like that's like 90s celebrity culture. I think that was probably the norm for him. But at Red Rocks, you hike.
Yeah. Whether you get to or not, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. What's the craziest thing that you've ever seen?
Whew.
And you don't need to name names, but I'm curious because I don't want to.
That's the thing.
We've already talked out of school a little bit, and granted, when you said when we were talking about Tom Jones, it wasn't Tom Jones per se; it's just people around him, right?
Yeah, it was his tour, and I do think that artists influence their tours. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't worked for Live Nation for a while. So they could have completely different tours anyway, but same tour though, just lines of Coke on the bathroom sink everywhere. So I think that influences the culture as well.
Oh yeah.
So and then we also had some metal shows, and one of the metal singers, you know, they scream really hard. So he's projectile vomiting everywhere. And then one of our backstage guys was like a huge fan of his and like insisted on running out and cleaning up this guy's vomit. That's why you shouldn't idolize people.
Exactly.
That was the craziest thing for sure.
So speaking of crazy things, have you heard about what was in the news lately with Brass Against? Where she urinated trying to hit a bucket on somebody's head.
He was not trying to hit a bucket, dude.
Well, I'm just saying, he had a bucket on his head, and she supposedly aiming for the bucket, but pissed all over him.
Okay, so some of my friends said it was a cup, and some of my friends said it was a GoPro. We watched the video very carefully. I think that it was a cup, right?
Okay.
What do you think? Did you see it?
Well, I just heard it was a cup or a bucket that was actually attached to his head. I think that's the impression I got.
Yeah.
But you know, when you look at the band, you wouldn't think of like, I haven't listened to any of their music, so I can't say what the influence of the music is. But good God.
Well, it's like a Brass Rage Against the Machine cover, so it's not metal. Yeah, I don't know. I was so conflicted about that. I was so conflicted about it because that was full consent that guy gave. Enthusiastic consent. He put a cup on his forehead. But then the consent that did not happen was he flicked the cup on the audience afterwards.
Yes.
I would be so pissed. Like, literally. Do whatever you want to do. I'll turn my face. Everyone's consenting. What the hell ever. But if you flick a cup of piss at me,
So that's what she got mad at and had him removed from the venue.
She had him removed?
Yeah, she said, get him the fuck off the stage. And so it must be that incident.
I think it was just part of the whole shtick.
You think it was
because she set it up before it even happened.
Mm-hmm.
and she was talking about him like, I'm gonna piss in this motherfucker's face or something like that. I don't know. It was definitely the most rock and roll thing I've seen in a while. That's for sure. Right.
Right.
Yeah, it made me cringe like hell. But I mean, would Brass Against make the news otherwise? I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
And again,
Exactly.
enthusiastic consent, like, I guess the thing is, like, I wouldn't want my kids at that concert.
Right.
So I don't know, like, what the age range was there, but I don't know. I feel like that is nothing compared to Astro World. So the timing was interesting.
Yeah, for sure. That's just a tragedy. And it's amazing that after as many times as that has happened in the concert world, that it continues to happen. You know, you would think that obviously there's protocols in place that are supposed to happen, but at the same time, just a tragedy. And especially when you're talking kids that died, and not that it, makes it any better if it's adults, but, you know, you take your kid to a concert and you end up getting trampled. I mean, come on, that's just horrible.
Yeah, that sucks. I think it's so important for kids to be exposed to music and concert settings, and to make it that unsafe. It's a bummer for entire generations.
It's irresponsible, and really, I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but there definitely needs to be, parties held responsible for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that's something that I love Gen Z for these days is they are such media masters, and they've been releasing so many videos of artists stopping the song to help someone and gaining more respect from the audience, more safety in the audience, and the show goes on. It just adds to the experience. Like, stop the show and make it safe. People support that.
Yeah.
What's the most rock and roll thing that you've ever seen? And it doesn't have to be like an experience that you had while you were working for Live Nation or promoting bands per se. It's just anything that you've ever seen rock and roll.
See, this isn't probably going to be super hardcore because I am a very mellow rock and roller.
Okay.
I would say one moment I can think of was AFI at Red Rocks, and the singer ran up the side rock by the audience that you're not supposed to run up. And the spotlight followed him, and there's this epic shadow of him across all of the Red Rocks audience. So as a producer, that was an epic moment for me because it was like lighting, it was audience interaction, it was going off script. It was art for sure.
Wes, what's your most rock and roll moment?
I don't know. My most rock and roll moment.
Not you personally.
No, I know that. No, I'm just trying to think.
I just want to make sure that you're still with us.
No, I'm with you. I'm just not sure anything comes to mind that is like epic rock and roll moment. I mean, Night Ranger, I can't remember the song they played where they all collapse and everything stops, and then the music comes on really slow and they slowly get up and they kick into the song again. I can't remember the song, but I thought that was brilliant. And and it was all staged. It wasn't like what she's talking about where it was like kind of off script, but I can just remember being like, that is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So
stagecraft, which
Ooh, I do have another one though.
Okay.
When I was at a metal show, I just turned 21. I think it's called The Wall of Death. Have you heard of that at all?
No.
So like the singer says Wall of Death, or I probably have that term wrong. I haven't listened to metal in a while, but it's where the audience splits into two, and then they crash into each other, and it's like a massive mosh pit. I didn't know what that was, and I was walking between it with two PBRs, and I got smashed between the wall of death. But then it left a cut on each of my palms, like Jesus.
You have the stigmata?
So I just like raised my hands, and everybody was like, ah! But it was just PBR cuts.
The stigmata. You're going to have sainthood later.
Yeah.
We're going to call you Saint L if they don't change your name to Saint something else.
L.
Yeah, it's long overdue.
I love that. That's a great rock and roll story.
Yeah, it was a hit, and people didn't mosh me after that, which was great.
I never was into the whole mosh thing. I hate that stuff. I
No,
just gotta say.
I'm a total mosh wimp. I can't handle that. Never could. Even crowd surfing, like, I don't know, for as many concerts as I go to, I'm like a stand in the middle and just say nothing kind of person.
What's yours, Todd?
My most rock and roll
thing,
probably this wasn't my first my first concert, but it was the first true rock and roll metal concert in the 80s. I actually talked my parents into allowing me to go with a buddy of mine. We flew to Anchorage. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska. So we flew to Anchorage because it was rare that anybody ever came to Fairbanks, big names, would get people like fucking Ted Nugent.
that fucking guy.
No, but we get some bands. Actually, I think Ted Nugent did come and I think Night Ranger came too. And that was a big deal. But anyway, so we went to Anchorage and we saw the Scorpions on the Love at First Sting tour. Ooh. And it was, I think at the time, it was the loudest concert that arena ever had in Anchorage. And in the middle of one of the songs, and I can't remember which song it was, there was a guy jumped out of the audience onto the stage and held down the lead singer, Klaus Meine. And he held him down for it seemed like a really long time, like a few minutes. And the whole band kept on playing, like they're just jamming, riffing away, and all the people from the sides, the roadies, come out and they grab this dude. Like it took them a while to separate them off the lead singer. And then once they did get this guy off, they just beat the hell out of him. And literally, like, fists were flying.
Wow.
They beat this guy. And then there is a trash can on the end of the stage. And they grabbed him and turned him upside down into the trash can. And then one of them kicked the trash can off the stage with him in it. That's the most rock and roll thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
Whoa.
Never ever seen anything else like that. I was like, wow, that was rock and roll right there. Like mind blown, as I don't know what I was, 14, 15 at the time.
Oh, wow. You were a baby too. Yeah, that's crazy. It's so interesting to me that the band just always keeps playing. Like with that Brass Against band, if you watch the video of her like peeing in the cup, nobody's stopping, right? He does a side eye. He's like, "Whoa, that's weird," and just keeps playing. Like nobody is phased. It's like what happens at band practice to where when you're on a stage, this is nothing.
Right. Yeah.
The only time I've seen, like somebody react is like there's a concert, Rolling Stone concert. I think it's called Still Life in Paris. I don't remember. Anyway, it's a filmed Rolling Stone concert from like the 1980s. And a guy jumps up on stage and tries to interact with Mick Jagger. And Keith Richards comes, he's running by Keith Richards at the same time. And Keith Richards takes his guitar and like whacks him with it. And I thought that's pretty rock and roll. Like, hey, get the hell out of here,
Yeah, shoo.
Oh. First concert you ever went to?
NSYNC.
NSYNC.
I hate that I brought them up more than once tonight.
That's all right. I mean, how old were you? You had to be in junior high or something?
Yeah, I was like 9 or 10 for the first one. The first one I saw, I was like 9 or 10. The second NSYNC concert I went to, I was like 14.
I think that's, quite acceptable. Wes, first concert.
First big concert, Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash was your first concert?
Oh, that's
first big good. Concert where I was invited with a friend to go. And it would have been like 69, 70.
That's messed up, Wes. That's way too good.
Yeah, that was the first. And we had really good seats. So,
damn.
Yeah, that was pretty badass. And of course, I was a huge Johnny Cash fan at the time. And yeah, the Statler brothers opened for him, as you know, they did towards in that time frame. So yeah, it was good. Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh, what about you, Todd?
So my first concert was a band called Quarter Flash. Are you familiar with them?
No freaking way.
Yep.
We have a connection with Quarter Flash. You know what it is, right?
No. My date at the time?
Who was your date? No, it wasn't your date. I didn't date your date when you went to Quarter Flash. Who was your date for Quarter Flash?
My date was this really nice girl that I was seeing in junior high. Her name was Julie Geeson. And I don't know what I'm friends with her on Facebook, but I can't remember what her married name is now. But yeah.
Shout out to Julie. What's that? Say it.
I said, shout out Julie. Same wavelength. What's your connection?
So the connection is one of our mutual friends, Barb's mutual friend, but also Todd's. His cousin was the bass player. Scott Gooch's cousin was the bass player for Quarter Flash.
Really? Gooch's?
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to have to mention that next time I see him.
Yeah.
See, small world.
Small world.
There you go. You just proved it right now. That whole 6 degrees of separation.
And goddamn, she can play sax too. I can't remember her name right off the hand. I used to be able to know it, but
yeah, they only had like 1 or 2 hits, but man, they were good. It was
they're on my phone. Like every now and then she'll pop up with that one. I can't even remember the name of the damn song now, but
Hard My Heart.
And she has this wicked sax solo.
Yeah.
So
what's the band called again? I want to look this up.
Quarter Flash.
So
they were 80s. They were same time as Berlin and the Motels.
And back when you had, I think it's made a comeback, but there used to be a lot of like really great sax playing.
Yeah.
And during the 80s, and some of those bands like Foreigner had some great.
Yep. Pink Floyd had
stuff going on.
Great sax stuff back in the 70s.
Oh yeah, they look cool as hell.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say that I was pretty taken with her. I didn't even remember what the lead singer's name was, but anyway, great voice. It was a tight band and a great concert, and yeah.
I'll tell you her name just if you just bear with me just a second.
Okay.
I want to say it's Rindy Ross. So that's her name. And Rich Gooch. Scott's cousin.
Oh my God. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to ask him about that.
That's awesome.
I should get his autograph and send it to Julie Geeson.
Yeah.
There you go.
It was funny. I actually posted something about that on Facebook at one point. She was like, I remember that. So she obviously had a good time.
So our listeners want to know, did you get the kiss at the end? Did she kiss you?
Maybe. I don't know. I remember showing up to her house because she lived near the middle school that we went to and the auditorium. The middle school and the high school were connected by this auditorium where the bands would play. So when I got dropped off, I went and picked her up after my dad dropped me off, and I had to go up to her house, and her dad was like outside working, and it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, I don't know if this guy likes me or not. I better behave. I better be on my best behavior. So I remember thinking that.
So you're just sweating and crying?
I was crying? No, but I think I was like, he seems a little surly. I don't think I'm gonna, I think I just need to be a gentleman and come across as a nice kid to this girl's dad.
Like you were a nice kid, Todd. You don't have to come across.
I had my moments. There's other parts of my life that maybe were not so nice as far as me as a child. I was a little bit of a hellion. My saving grace was that I knew how to tell people what they wanted to hear. So if I was in trouble, I always knew what to say. I usually got out of it. I very rarely did I get in trouble for the nefarious stuff that I did. I always had a good.
That's how I got away with shit too. People pleasing, my therapist says.
Hello, it's Todd Pearson. Happy fall to everyone.
Wes and I want to acknowledge our media sponsor, New Magazine. That's N-U-E. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on their Instagrams. The national edition can be found at new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. Look to New for compelling stories from the world of art and fashion. Thanks for listening.
I'm Elle Naef, and you're listening to the Tenet Podcast.
So was there a pivotal moment with music that you remember that like kind of set you on this path? Like it changed, like your world just changed?
Yeah, that school dance I mentioned. And then like any concert I went to after that, I was losing my mind. And I realized that like not everybody felt that way. Like, again, referencing my older brothers, you know, they were taking me to concerts and they wanted to die. And so I knew it was a unique thing I had. And then the first show I threw with Denver Creative Movement, that was bands and artists, I don't think I'll ever forget that. It was insane just to see all these different groups of friends united and dancing. And my thing with music and art is that there's just this beautiful aspect to being vulnerable and it being received by entire communities. So after I started booking my own shows, I realized that was my connection to that, was people felt good being themselves.
Yeah, it levels the playing field, right?
Yeah, totally. It's so important, especially I think creatives tend to be self-critical, you know, overthink a little bit. And I think those moments can literally save lives where there's a handful of people who say, hey, I heard you and I support you and you're good to go here.
How was it as you were coming up in high school and you were getting embedded in the music scene and promoting these shows? Was it difficult? You mentioned before that it's kind of an old boys school, at least at some level.
Yeah.
I assume it's kind of like that kind of at all levels, right?
Yeah, that's a toughie. As far as high school went, I feel like I had nothing to lose. To get into my personal life more, I was emancipated at 15 and I started a new school my freshman year of high school. So that gave me a lot of feelings of being an outsider, which makes me passionate about inclusion. But at the same time, I was able to be who I wanted to be. There is something to be said for a fresh start. So there were a lot of barriers as far as the music industry went. I was definitely undercut by some bands. I was definitely labeled a groupie and disappointed a lot of people, especially in that area and the genres I was in. If you were a young woman, especially a high school girl, who was at concerts, then you were trying to hook up with someone. And it was kind of surprisingly world shattering to people to know that I was in it for the business. And at the same time, like I said, it fueled some opportunities. So it was a mixed bag for sure.
You mentioned disappointing people. How was it construed as being disappointing?
I think when I wanted credit for the work I was doing, that would throw people off. Like booking band shows, promoting them, being their interactions with fans and venues, and then calling myself a manager was hard for some of the bands I worked with to embrace. They wanted to have a cute groupie, not a girl who was the boss of them.
Interesting. So they didn't like the idea that, or they liked the idea of you doing these things for them, but they didn't like the idea that if you wanted to assert yourself as far as like, hey, you guys need to like do this or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't play instruments. So oftentimes I was told, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't play instruments. And I laugh looking back at that because music business is like 1/50th about the actual instruments. But yeah, that's exactly right. It was hard for anyone to assert authority over some of these high school bands, especially women.
Were there other females of your age working in the capacity that you were as far as managing and promoting and booking bands? Did you know other females?
Not that I knew of then, not to discount their existence. I was never introduced to any. I've typically been, I don't know if it's because I grew up with brothers or what, but for the longest time, I was in mostly male social circles, work circles, things like that. And then it wasn't until I was mid 20s that I began to immerse myself in networks of women in the music industry.
I bet that was refreshing.
It was awesome. Yeah. I started at this camp called Girls Rock Camp, and they're all over the country. And it started in Oregon with Bikini Kill and a couple other bands. Sleater Kinney were some of the origins. And it's a camp for female identifying kids. And they do empowerment workshops and confidence workshops, along with instrument lessons and basically a crash course in everything you need to be a band and feel good about it and get rid of imposter syndrome. And it only lasts about a week. Some camps go longer, but everybody I was surrounded by volunteering there had been through the same things I had. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced that for sure, whether they were musicians or there were talent buyers there, promoters, everyone.
Yeah, it sounds like it was very empowering.
Yeah. It was definitely empowering. And again, it comes down to like solidarity. It's just so valuable. It's not to say that you have to hang out with only people like you all the time, but there's something to be said for a place where you're surrounded by people who get it.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I would think that there's probably not a lot of places, maybe at least at that time, where girls could come together or people that identified as female would have this opportunity to interact with other people that have the same interest. I mean, that's kind of a rarity, right? In most facets of life, even actually.
Yeah, totally. Especially for my generation and generations before it. So to make it a norm for the youth is really invigorating because now those kids are going to step into the music industry expecting that, and they're not going to take anything less. They're going to want that title that they deserve, and they're going to want respect.
I love that. And so does this organization continues to be out there and offer these camps?
Yeah, Girls Rock is all over the world now.
Oh,
so like in Sweden, they separate it by genre. And I think they do that in a couple other countries too. So kids can go to the hip hop camp, to the rock camp, anything like that. Because something I learned that I think the organization learned too is as far as like cultural inclusion, rock has always kind of been appropriated and excluded a lot of cultures and races. So sometimes some countries have figured out that you need to get people in by using different genres where people, again, feel that solidarity and feel safe to perform.
How many years did you volunteer with this organization?
I was at Girls Rock for about 5 years. I started as a band coach. So that's basically a band manager. I was a teacher before that. So it was kind of a natural transition. And then I moved on to starting an intern program for the teenagers in Denver, and then working the intern program in Santa Barbara.
So you would actually find mentors that would work with these kids. Is that the deal?
Yeah, I would take some of the campers that were aging out and put them in leadership roles.
They age at 18 or?
Yeah, just about.
Okay.
I think it's between 16 and 18 is the kids I was taking.
Wow. What a great program.
Yeah, they are amazing. And I think they deserve the worldwide acclamation they're getting. It's great.
Let's go back and talk a little bit about the Denver creative movement. How long were you involved with that?
That was about 4 years. And that was my whole life that was basically my college. I didn't really go to college. I was booking shows and doing community events. So that was from high school through when I would have graduated college. And it ended because I couldn't figure out 501c3s and getting funding.
So this was actually your own nonprofit that you started.
Well, we weren't classified as a nonprofit because, again, I didn't know how to file it. I was like 20.
Okay.
It was just a collective, basically. So we had visual artists, musicians. We had shows where we had hula hoopers, fashion designers. It was a wide array of people.
It sounds really interesting. Is it something that you think that you ever may restart?
I think that Headroom Sessions is like a solid tribute to it.
Okay.
We like to slide in poets and other mediums. We showcase a lot of different galleries and super niche things. Like for our TV show, for some clips for that, we went to this place. I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's, dang, I can't remember the name. I'll let you know. But it's in the Santa Fe Arts District. And it's this like gallery of oddities. So it's art, but it's like they have a weird mermaid looking creature in a jar, and they have like stuff they've collected. So yeah, we definitely like to incorporate every medium we can.
I love it. How has that evolved over the years? Did it start with just this idea that we're gonna give this promotion to these bands, and then it's kind of evolved over time? What kind of a evolution has it gone through?
Yeah, so it started with our buds, some acoustic people. During the time we started, I was just at the tail end of managing a folk band that we were friends with. So it started with our friends and a GoPro, and eventually I had already had this whole Rolodex, digital Rolodex of people that I really wanted to keep in contact with through the Denver creative movement. So I was able to just jump into that. And luckily, people were down. Like if you offer electronic press kits, usually those are worth around $1,000 and more. And that's locally like 4 shows, 5 shows, 10 shows for some people to earn that money. So people were down, and we were able to book some artists that are really iconic locally. So once people got to know the artists that we had already booked, it just began this total trajectory where if we had the time capacity, I think we could book 10 sessions a month. But again, it's a passion project, and we both work full-time jobs.
Right.
So that's the kicker there.
And that's a lot of time. And especially now that you have kind of pared it down because of COVID, without having a multitude of people to call from, yeah, it's very time consuming.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's needed more than ever now. Digital content is on demand. So it's hard to keep up, but we try.
Well, you're doing a heck of a job from what I can tell and what I've seen. So that brings us to PBS 12.
Yeah.
How did you end up there? Because you said that you didn't necessarily, you have some college, right? But you didn't get a degree. How does one become a producer at a PBS station?
So that kind of has to do with what I was talking to you about earlier. You noticed that my job title was different between creative director and producer. So for the longest time, I didn't know what a producer did. I knew it sounded cool, and that was about it. I considered myself a curator, a creative director, founder, anything else. And eventually I had I was approached by someone at PBS because they needed music programming, and they asked if Headroom Sessions would be interested in that. And it happened to be a woman I met at Girls Rock who I really loved. And I had a conversation with her one day while we were talking about the show being on the channel. And I was like, wait, is this production? Am I a producer right now? And she was like, yeah, you're a producer. And I was like, I like this. It fit like all of my creative and business outlets. I love to curate. I love community connection and talent scouting. I love envisioning things. So I just asked her, I said, can you train me more on being a producer? And within a couple years, she trained me and I was hired at the channel.
So basically you were interning with her and she was training you at the same time?
Well, I was still freelancing. I freelanced in digital marketing for about 5 years. So that was a good in. I helped them with social media, went from that to writing a couple scripts for their political shows. I'm involved in a lot of activism communities here. And then eventually all those pieces connected into a title.
So everything that you've done since high school was really kind of set you on this path to arrive where you're at. It was all real life experience and you taking the reins and saying, whatever it was, you threw yourself at it, developed that experience. You knew how to run things. You knew how to schedule things. You knew how to keep things flowing. You were already a producer. You just didn't have that title.
Yeah, I just didn't know what that title entailed. Yeah, that's exactly it. And it was really affirming because, I've always had an alternative lifestyle. Like I mentioned, I was moving out my freshman year of high school, and I definitely would get down on myself for not having the traditional academic setting. We're taught a lot in life via capitalism and the Industrial Revolution that we are meant to be productive, and that in order to do that, you go to college and you get fed into one of 20 to 30 jobs, and that's success. And I believed that. I totally bought into that. So I was having a hard time for a long time. I went to college for one semester for journalism and one semester for marketing, and nothing felt right. And I couldn't afford it, working full time and going to school. It just wasn't my jam. So I didn't know where I was going to go. And all I knew was that I had to have fun and feel good day by day. And eventually those skills I built by just moving forward. You can't sit and sulk. You got to just go blindly sometimes. And by doing that, it definitely all came together.
Did you always have this go for it attitude?
I think so. I grew up as a pretty free range kid, is how I call it. I grew up with a single mom who didn't have the mental capacity to be a traditional mom or the financial capacity. So with that came a lot of troubles, but a lot of freedom. Like I said, I got to spend a lot of time listening to music. I dove into pop culture things that a lot of kids my age weren't exposed to. I gained a lot of emotional intelligence. So I think I have always been pretty independent and had my eye on something, even if I didn't know exactly what to call it.
And pretty fearless. Are you pretty fearless?
No. I definitely have a lot of fear in life, for sure. At some point, though, it's like a matter of choices. For me, I'll use first person, but there were points where I was scared to death, but again, had no choice but to keep moving forward and keep trying. So it's definitely, as far as fear goes, like a fake it till you make it situation. And it might always be that way, honestly. but I think it creates a sense of camaraderie with people. So being approachable and comfortable with vulnerability, even in the moments where I'm scared, has helped me in my networking and career.
Yeah, I admire that. And I could tell from the moment that I met you that you're a good person.
Oh, thank you.
And what you mentioned as far as being approachable and down to earth, I immediately felt that from you. And we had a conversation the other day before this podcast, and we probably talked for 45 minutes or something. I was on a roll that night. I got to apologize.
Yeah, no, no, that was great. I was glad you were on a roll because, like I said, I hadn't eaten all day. I was like crawling around the office trying to talk. But yeah, it was a great conversation. I appreciate that.
So being independent, I mean, you started this pretty early. At age 15, you said you got emancipated from your mom.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that you have your own apartment at that point and you were pretty much just doing everything that an adult normally would do, but you had to do it yourself at that young age?
No, it was two different sides to a coin. So I moved in with my older brother, and he had grown up similarly to me, but took just a totally different life trajectory to where he became a realtor at like 19. And this was in the 90s when the market was booming out here. So he did great. And by the time he was 23, he had a family and like a mansion and all these cars. So I ended up living with him. But at the same time, people thought I was like rich and spoiled. And he's very much a pull yourself up by the bootstraps person. So I still had to be independent. I had the safety, at least, of knowing that I had somewhere to sleep and some food, which goes a hell of a long way for sure. But I was working since I was 13, and that continued while I lived with him for sure. He was a big advocate. Like the more jobs you can get, the better.
So what did emancipation do for you as far as like, you know, you could have just moved in with your brother without being emancipated. What did you gain by going through that process?
So I was able to give my brother guardianship. So then he was able to register me for like state services. I never really got around to using them because he was also like figure out the paperwork, and I wasn't trying to do that. I was a high schooler working different jobs. I'm not going to do that. But it gave me some more safety as far as who had say over me.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds like he was a great role model.
Yeah. We had our ups and downs. I think we're doing better now than we ever have. Now that we're both getting older, I definitely see things that I appreciated more. But when I was a teenager, we fought like hell. But it's funny because I look back and I'm like, I'm 32 now. And he had me and two adopted kids and two birth kids by the time I was my age. And I live in an apartment with my cat that I try to take care of. So, so I definitely have more of a sense of appreciation for that. And he's starting to have more faith in my life path. I think he was nervous while I was going through the stuff I mentioned. I wasn't going to college. I was going to all these concerts, smoking pot. He thought I was doomed, but now he's like, all right, I get it.
Each person has their own path, right? And everybody does this thing differently. And that was your path. And he recognized that, obviously, from what you explained, you've always had a really strong work ethic. So, I mean, he probably saw that in you, and, just as if he was like your parent, I guess he was kind of a surrogate parent, even though he's your brother, right? He had kind of expectations in his mind that he set forth. But if you're a parent, that no matter what you think your kids should do, they got to find it on their own. They got to do their own thing. And you got to give them that,
I don't think most parents think that way though.
Yeah.
I think you do because you're a little bit more open to Well, I think part of it is the road you went on, Todd. I think you're open to that. I think a lot of parents try to control and dictate and drive people, and it works, and sometimes it don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a gamble, it seems like. I definitely, watching him parent my nieces and nephews now, they're all like teenagers or in college. Um, and while I want to be a parent someday, I do not envy him because that is so hard just watching them take their own path. And I, like I said, I have so much more understanding just watching him go through that of what he went through with me because I was like, middle finger to the air. No one can tell me what to do. And my niece is like that now, and it gives me a freaking heart attack. So I get it.
How do you think Kid Rock's kids are doing?
He has kids.
I don't know if he does or not.
Is this really a question? Welcome to the Kid Rock podcast.
Oh God, that's awful. I feel like you would have to either leave completely or embrace that lifestyle, and I hope they would leave.
Oh, so this whole producer thing, this is pretty new for you. This happened in this past year, right?
Yeah, I started at PBS in April. So yeah, 6 months as an official producer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I love it.
And what I heard in another interview with you is that you were the first full-time employee that's been hired by them like in a decade or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many years, but yeah, they were doing a lot of contract employees and people like that for a long time.
So that, I think that's the proof of the pudding right there. If they're making you a producer and you're doing all this fantastic work,
thank you.
That's just fantastic. I'm really happy for you. And that Headroom Sessions is a really phenomenal show. Like, I'm glad that I've been exposed to it. Now I want to see more of the episodes. I became familiar with it because we had Cipriano Ortega on, and you featured his band on one of the episodes. In that same episode, there's, I don't know, 3-4 other bands, at least in the episode I saw. I think there was at least 2 other bands in addition to his. I want to say there was 3, but anyway, it was all really good.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you're referring to the PBS show, right?
Yeah.
So for that, it's a curation of both artists that we've had in sessions and people that I scout, which gives us a lot more freedom. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed all those artists. I try to keep it somewhat genre specific, but with enough variety. And I think that was our rock show, which is broad and gave me a lot of creative freedom.
So the PBS iteration of Headroom Sessions is like its own entity. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, that is like, I get nervous when people watch our PBS show because that is the trajectory of me learning production. It's basically my production diary. So it's super vulnerable to put it out there. And yeah, it's different than sessions. For sessions, we book 2 bands of 2 different genres and a poet. Same gallery and everything. And then for the PBS show, it's a special mixture of things where I get a little bit more creative. And then Matt does the editing and the final touches. And he too has been learning this process as we go. So it's been wild learning and then putting everything out there that you're learning. That's something I've never had to do. A lot of times you have the opportunity to keep something to yourself. But with this, it's like we have to meet a 12 episode quota and it's all going out there. So we better figure it out. So if you see the progression from our first season to now, you see little changes along the way. And yeah.
So how long is an episode?
27 minutes.
27 minutes. And you said 12 episodes per season?
Yep.
And you're on your 3rd season, is that correct?
Yep. And then it's about 50 artists per season.
And then how big a break do you take between seasons?
Um, well, I guess
Or do you take a break? Does it roll right in? What, like I'm finished in season 2. Now I'm planning and producing season 3.
Yeah, that's a toughie. So the actual sessions are year round. And then we do the curation and editing about a week before it's due.
Okay. Procrastination at its best, or just
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
it plays?
So it's like a mixture. Like we have the content and then they say, hey, by the way, your series is due. And we like shit our pants for 3 weeks and cry and then get it out there and then we're done.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And PBS knows I'm pretty open with them about that process. So
I think that's probably the majority of people's process.
yeah.
So no matter what they're doing, making movies, making TV shows, doing PBS, whatever, making a podcast.
We're definitely working on it. I'm definitely learning the value of post-production is immense, immense, immense. Because there are times, especially now that I'm learning more of the ropes of being a producer, it gives me a better eye on things. So it like physically hurts me when we have to turn in an episode before I think edits are done. Like I crumble inside. So I think that's our biggest lesson going forward is just to take our time. We don't have to cram at the end. There's no like thrill to it. I feel like we get like adrenaline out of it and that's what makes us work. I think that's a work style of certain people is like you have to have that kick in the ass of panic. But I would love to learn how to shift that and to work on it all year for sure.
So I just listened to a podcast and talking about the slow burn of creating something. And they were talking to a poet whose name, I think it's Robert Bly. I might be wrong. But he would write a poem. He would put it in his trunk and he would let it sit there for a year. And then he'd open it up, look at it again, rewrite it, put it in. And sometimes this would go like 3-4 years before he'd ever push it out to the public.
Wow.
And that's like the slow burn, right?
I would lose that poem on day 3. That's a problem.
I think I would give a shit less about that poem once it was in the trunk, right? So,
yeah.
and maybe that was his deal. Like, there it is. It's been a year.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what's the?
I respect people who can do that.
Yeah. And I guess you can see iterations of his writing, according to his daughter, of how it changed. Each poem changed. So he's definitely working it. So what's the life of a producer? Like the average day for a producer of a PBS show?
Emails.
Asana. I heard you like Asana.
Yeah. Oh no.
Spreadsheets and Asana.
That came up in an interview. I was like, I really need to talk about this for 3 minutes. Yes.
And
project management.
What's that?
I said, yes, project management for sure.
Yeah. So what was funny is I was listening to that today and you said Asana, and that's what I use for my sales.
Yeah.
It's a great little piece of software. So
yeah. If I mention them again now, do you think I could pitch for like some sponsorship?
I think you should get some. I think you and I both should get some money from Asana.
Yeah. This is the 3rd interview where I've mentioned them. So, Headroom Sessions need some money. Let's go, Asana.
Can we tag Asana in our show notes? Maybe somebody from Asana will listen to the podcast and throw somebody some money.
Yes, perfect. Project management for procrastinators. Asana.
There you go. That's
today.
Oh my God. And you nailed me right to the T right there. So a lot of, so going back to the question, so a lot of planning, a lot of emails, and then some production, right? So are you writing scripts of how the show's going to go? And
yeah, so from start to finish, it varies. Most of my duties are, I've done everything from helping create the set. We book different guests. So I'll use a recent production as an example. We produced a series called Generation Grit, and GRIT stands for Grow, Restore, Inspire, Transform. And it's about hot topics today from Gen Z's perspective. And I was brought on right as this was about to gear up. So I was able to help come up with the title, the set, the organizations we feature, the kids we feature, the hosts, pretty much every detail of a production besides the camera angles and the shots, those are up to the director. So everything leading up to the shoot. And then during the shoot, I was in charge of the prompter. So that meant guiding how the conversation flowed. It was a free flowing conversation. So if a question we had planned wasn't relevant, then I would have to type new questions in or tell them to look a certain way or tell them to improvise or things like that. So it's a broad variety of things. And then afterwards, since I have my marketing experience, and that's something that is going to follow me for the rest of my life, I help make sure that the word gets out about the productions as well.
So how many shows total are you producing?
Generation Grit just finished, as did, I was doing a high school debate show, which was really interesting. Have you guys had any experience with debate class?
Yeah, I debated in college.
Really? It's quite a interesting world.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole culture. I just learned. So I did debate show, the Generation Grit show. We have a political roundtable called Colorado Inside Out, and then headroom sessions. And I was working on a children's show. And then I produce our pledge drives. Do you remember watching PBS and people would be on the phones in the background? And
well, I don't know. I guess they don't do the whole people in the background, but yeah.
Yeah. So I produce those too. So 5 shows and the pledge drives.
That's a lot of stuff.
I hate Pledge Week, by the way, but it's a necessary evil.
It's really wild, right? So this is what we're doing on PBS 12, though. I will drop this. We've been, I have some people connected in the local comedy scene. So I've been working on training some local comedians to do like free flowing improv conversations with each other. They can't cuss and they can't get too inappropriate, but we can still make it lively. So if you're going to be interrupted and your concert's going to be interrupted, at least it's with comedy.
Great.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
You got to make it entertaining so that people still tune in, right?
Yeah. When I see talking heads in general these days, I kind of tune out, especially like YouTube really drove that home. You can go anywhere on YouTube and find talking heads. So it's definitely an era where we need to mix that up a bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about each one of these programs a little bit more. So yeah. Generation Grit, right? Yeah. Talk about some of the things that are discussed on that program.
Yeah, so we talked about, so many things. We had one on living with disabilities. We had one on restorative justice versus cancel culture. We had, I hosted a couple. The ones I hosted were healing through music and homelessness, youth homelessness. And the youth homelessness episode was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my career. It was so intense, but that's again why I'm inspired by Gen Z. They're just willing to share so much and they understand the mission of sharing so much. So it was an inspiring series for sure.
They're a much more open generation, don't you think?
I do, yeah. And even speaking as a millennial, I'm even shocked by some of the things they're willing to share. But I respect it, as long as, I guess my advice to Gen Z would be, as someone who's always been an oversharer, just making sure that you're sharing it with people who support you. But that's a risk that sometimes you have to take, you can't always tell who's going to support you until you share. But I respect them for sure.
Yeah, and I think we have we have more platforms than we ever have for sharing. So I think that plays in. If I think about, let's say the 60s, or, there was a lot of sharing ongoing now. And we forget about people in the streets and marching, and a lot of times because we're so connected to what happened in 2020 that we forget what happened in 1968 or 65 or 66. And I think we went through a couple of decades where we kind of waned away from that kind of stuff, that activism piece. But I think they have the ability to share on like multiple platforms. But I agree with you. You got to share with people that you can trust, because it can be pretty ugly and destroying if you share with the wrong people. I want to touch a little bit on this, Grit, because obviously you touched on something that I find interesting. So talk about restorative justice versus cancel culture. How did they take that? What was the platform for that? How to compare them?
Yeah, so originally our series was supposed to be more of a debate. And with the restorative justice versus cancel culture episode and many of the other ones, it ended up the different panelists ended up having the same perspectives. And I had a hard time comparing restorative justice with versus cancel culture. But I think it's important right now because there's so much talk about cancel culture, and mostly it's used as a derogatory term towards something happening. A lot of people will say, oh no, I said one thing wrong, or are you just going to cancel me, or things like that. But it was a discussion about when is it okay to call something out, and for someone, when does someone reach a point where they lose their platform, where they aren't allowed to say these things because of A or B or C. I try to leave it to the youth to discuss it, and not imprint my personal opinion on them. But, they see me, they know, I'm sure they gather which way I lean politically. But it was a really interesting conversation about how restorative justice, cancel culture, doesn't have to just stop at canceling people. That's not the end of it. The thing is saying, this was unacceptable, here's why, and here's what we can do to improve it if someone's open to it. So for example, if someone's canceled, quote unquote, for sexual assault or for sexual harassment, in the activism community and a lot of other communities, it's called out, and then restorative justice comes in to where you try to help that person. You say, where did this come from? How can you make this right? And how can you proclaim that it was wrong on your own and create more of community healing rather than just straight rejection?
That's interesting. Yeah. And is this Generation Grit, can you view it online? Is this something I could watch?
Yeah, it's on pbs12.org. And yeah, we hit those topics. We hit, honestly, Gen Z said it all better than I did. That's why I'm so impressed with them. I toss them some topics and they're like, oh, we got this. So yeah, we talk about racial issues. We talk about gender issues, differing abilities, different lifestyles. They really cover everything.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it sounds like a great show. And how progressive is that to give a platform to kids that normally don't get a say in anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think especially, I mean, it may have been this way for every generation. I guess millennials got a lot of shit talked about us too, but I feel like Gen Z just gets talked about more than you hear them talk, and to a point where it's degrading. They get all these stereotypes, and I understand there's a generational battle sometimes, there's Gen Z will say, okay, boomer or whatever. But I think that Gen Z oftentimes gets lumped into the Tide Pod kind of, they don't know what they're doing, they're obsessed, they're vain situation. But because they're exposed to all this information, they have a wealth of knowledge that we aren't tapping into.
I want to check it out just so I can hear their perspectives on things, because I am curious. And if there's anything that having a podcast has taught me is that, it's educational. But you don't know unless you ask those questions, unless you engage with somebody and have a full on conversation. You don't know. Otherwise it's just perception, right? And you gotta have a conversation in order to understand where they're coming from. You just can't make that assessment off pure observation,
Absolutely. And it's inspiring for all ages. The youth are always our future. That's not a new concept to any generation. And to find ways to have faith in that is healing for everybody.
And so how many shows have you recorded thus far?
We did all 12 of Generation Grit.
Okay. And will it come back for another season? Was it well received?
I don't know.
It's too early for that?
Yeah. We're still putting it out there. So we definitely hope for a second season. And I think we could have a lot of great new angles for it. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like the sky would be the limit with that platform, right? There's so many different things you could do with that configuration, or I'm not using the correct terminology, but with that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially something that was really inspiring was apparently a lot of our audiences watching it now are Gen Z. So it's nice to hear that they're listening to each other too. And that's opening a whole new audience for PBS as well.
And that's what I was thinking. If PBS knew what they were, if they were smart about it, they would really double down on that, because if you can get, that generation watching, you have a lifelong support for PBS.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. And PBS definitely is aiming toward that. I think that's a big angle I'm taking working there for sure, is opening up the audiences a bit. But, PBS is a nonprofit, so it's really kind of up to the funders and what the funders want in the end.
And who has the money? What generation has the money?
Yeah, not Gen Z.
No
offense, guys.
No, it's boomers like me.
Yeah. So that's where being inspired about your future comes in.
Yeah.
I think that is fantastic. If you're garnering an audience from that generation in this age where there is so much content out there competing for their attention, that says something about the program that you've produced.
Yeah. Thank you. I would love for us to move on to TikTok. I know that's where it's happening. But the fact that they're going onto YouTube and to traditional websites is really awesome.
Yeah.
And it shows the communities that they've built as young people.
Earlier, you mentioned that there's been some pretty touchy subjects, and you mentioned that the whole homeless teen episode was pretty intense. Why was that?
That was intense. Oh man, that was a huge moment in my career as a producer, because I had experienced different types of homelessness growing up. And while I've healed a lot, it's still hard to talk about, mostly only when I see youth actively going through it. Like I said, I'm like a single woman living in the city, and I have to taper myself. And so I don't have adopt every other kid I see. And we got some of these students from Urban Peak Shelter, the youth shelter, and one other girl who was independent. Their stories were just heartbreaking, and their resiliency was inspiring, and their bravery in sharing it was just a roller coaster of emotions. And then having to send them back to the shelter after all that, we put them in a studio. I buy them lunch. We put the lights and cameras on them, and then we take them back to the shelter. That was hard. And one of them was a victim of human trafficking. these were not any common issues that you hear about in homelessness, even though they are very common happenings. Especially in Denver right now, we have all this controversy with the sweeps and the tent villages. And it's really causing a lot of people to double down on the judgment that it's all drugs, that these are all druggies in tents. And then you have these kids who obviously, if they could choose a different life, they would. They're not on drugs. They didn't have any say in landing in these circumstances. And them sharing their stories and that amplifying into the circumstances of the adults. If they didn't have these shelters and resources, they could easily become the adults we see in the streets. And it was none of their doing. So that was really powerful. And just talking face to face with them and watching the emotions in their eyes. And yeah, it was really powerful.
And I found online a really nicely written, intelligently written op-ed piece that you did for Westward last year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it was so on point, talking about these sweeps and what it does as far as, these are already displaced people and you're just displacing them again. And for all the money that you're spending, and you used your mom as an example in this particular piece, talking about if these resources had been used instead of like punishing her or punishing the people that are living on the streets, if they're actually utilized to help the people and try to help facilitate either, some people may never get off the street, but you could still be helping them. And some people just need that one little thing that helps them, that elevates them enough to get on to the next step, that helps them get out of it.
Yep.
We would be so much better off. And this is a subject that I think that a lot of people, and it irritates me when I hear people say, and people that, I don't want to be judgmental, but people that supposedly have these Christian values or whatever, but they say, well, they should just get a job, or like, you don't know what's going on. You don't know the circumstances. And just like you said, you're listening to these children that would love to be in a different situation, but they've been in really difficult circumstances that they had no control over or little control because of their age and where they're at. To generalize this whole unhoused problem is just ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
It really angers me.
Yeah, it's definitely super frustrating. A lot of it boils down to just acknowledgement of people's humanity. Like, my mom was homeless a lot after I moved out of her home. I would ditch high school to go check on her in Boulder. She would be hanging out on Pearl Street with some other houseless folks. And these days, I actually have a recording of an interview with her that I did. And we were catching up on the years she spent away from me when my mom has schizophrenia. So when she was totally on another planet, and she got in trouble for like walking around naked or something, and she laughs at it. She has a great sense of humor. But I asked her, like, what was the delusion, or what was your thought process before doing that? And she said, when nobody looks at you, you believe you're invisible. And that hit me so hard. Like, when people aren't acknowledging these people as humans, how would you act? There's no eyes on you. Nobody cares. Like, we would all be going a little bit crazy on those streets, no matter what the diagnosis is. So getting it from a child's perspective, which I think obviously people sympathize a little bit more with children. Are you really going to tell this 13-year-old who was human trafficked to go get a job? No. Just think it through. The elaborateness of people's stories, it never ends. They're all different circumstances. And it makes me cringe to think of the things that the comments people will make without knowing, not only for the people that they make comments about, but for them. Because how ignorant would that be to say to that 13-year-old who is human trafficked, get a job? Like, let that sink in. Think about what you're saying, you know? And sometimes it takes kids to teach people that, because for some reason, when people are adults, people lose empathy. But I tend to look at people as a combination of their inner generations. So imagining an inner child in a person and how they were treated like that definitely helps with empathy.
Yeah. And I think the approach you need to take, and I think you're right on with talking to the youth, because it's a different perspective. And like you said, it's not their fault. They're in it because of circumstances. The other thing I think of, it's because it's easy to pick apart homelessness or unhoused people when they don't have a job, when they're on welfare, when they're taking advantage of the programs that we want them to take advantage of. It's easy to pick that apart because we can call them lazy. We can call them, they just don't want to work. They want stuff for free. But when you start talking about, the people that are on the fringes that are actually working or working two jobs and have a child at home and trying to find. So when you're talking about the working poor, that's the angle I usually take, just because, you can't call them lazy because they're actually working one or two jobs and then trying to pay for childcare that's, $600 a month or more. So I think because it's such an easy target to just look at people that are in, boomtown living in tents that, they're just, they're druggies because there's needles around. They're, obviously not working. So they're lazy. That's an easy shot. And then you take a number of them are in the position that your mother was in. When you have mental health issues, you're not going to hold a job, so you got to have some empathy and approach it. And it's just frustrating to me because I was born a Republican. I'm currently a Republican, although I don't identify with anything the Republican Party has to say anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm like an Eisenhower Republican. And it just like infuriates me. And when I see my Senator Thune talking about Dems this, Dems that, I always tweet back, and what are you doing? And what are you doing? Because obviously you're not doing anything but pointing the finger. So do something.
It's to the point where it's not entirely even party based. It's all class based.
Yeah.
And, there are different classes and different parties. But how many people have you seen who are tiny home influencers, right? But we can't get those legalized here because a homeless will live in them. Hashtag van life, right? If you're rich and you can add wood paneling to the inside of your van and a kitchen sink, then it's cool. But if you're homeless living in a van, it's illegal. Right. It's all class-based.
Yeah, it's always painted with this broad brush. And this is what I hate about our current situation and culture in this country, is that everybody reacts off sound bites and nobody wants to think any further than their nose, right? They all want it wrapped up in one simple little sentence, and that's just not the way the world works.
They want to mean.
It's way more complex than people are willing to try to understand, that person that you're seeing on the street, that's an adult, they probably suffered some kind of traumatic thing. They probably didn't have a stable family life. They might've, like Wes was saying, they may have mental health problems. Well, guess what? If you have mental health problems and you can't hold a job, then you can't afford medication, right? The drug companies in this country rule the roost. They keep people captive, they're prisoners, and it's this vicious cycle that they can't get out of. Or the family that's living in their car, like Wes said, as far as like, trying to make ends meet, but still being houseless. They're working jobs, but they can't afford to live here, and you can't afford to, you got to try to feed your kids and give them some semblance of normalcy and keep your family together. But you don't have the resources to even leave this damn state to go someplace else where you might have a little bit more opportunity, at least housing wise. I mean, housing's just ridiculous here.
Yeah. Yeah. And sadly, anywhere you go right now, once you reach that point, it's nearly impossible to get out of it. Literally nearly impossible. The paperwork, the fact that homelessness is so high right now and there's such high demand for resources. Every day is a barrier, like we were talking about paying for daycare. That takes one job to pay for daycare in order to get to your other job to pay, to barely pay for food. It sucks. Yeah, there's a barrier around every corner. And on the flip side, like this might be a deep cut, but I feel like part of an issue to the society we have today is people, like you said, aren't willing to take their thought a little bit deeper on the why, but people are tired, blue collar people, they're working hard too, and they're trying to get money to their families. They're not going to try and sit and philosophize about what other people are doing. It's set up so that nobody has time to think about each other. And it's kind of a privilege to be able to sit and think about these issues, which is why I'm passionate about things like podcasts, public media, things like that, because it can get these ideas to people during their free time, even if unintentionally. Not that I'm trying to, weasel my way in. But I think it's important to have these discussions everywhere you can, because they're not having them at their wine dinners. They're not having them around the table with their family.
And it's great that PBS is forward thinking enough to give platform to these kind of discussions.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. I've had people ask me, like, if you could work for any channel, what would it be? And honestly, it's PBS, and that throws people off. But the idea of public media and being able to amplify the voices of people I know directly or through the grapevine who have these stories that I know can provide value to people who otherwise wouldn't encounter them is huge. Whereas other networks, you see the cycling of the same voices over and over and over again.
And it's all entertainment. And not that there's not entertaining programs on PBS, but there's always, I shoot for a media outlet. I've seen it firsthand how it becomes such a joke. It's an inside joke. Everybody knows that you're there to provide spot news, to document some kind of tragedy that helps the news cycle, continue to grind along,
Yeah.
A lot of it is just garbage, and it plays into that negativity. And I think it's wearing on the psyches of this country.
Totally. Have you seen Made yet on Netflix?
No, I've heard of it, but I have not seen it.
They did a great job at creating mainstream media that really teaches these barriers. So I highly recommend it. But I'm just in awe of that production. It's based on a memoir by a single mom who went through different levels of homelessness. And every episode is so enthralling just because she goes through at least 4 to 5 huge issues per episode, but they're all so real. She's leaving an abusive relationship that isn't abusive on paper, so she can't get any court backup. He refuses to pay anything for her and her daughter, like things that you hear all the time, but in one person's life and as a true story. So I think sneaking that into mainstream media is so huge and so crucial. And it was really well received, which feels good.
Let's talk about the other programs that you're producing.
Sure.
So you have this program called Farmer Dave. Is that right? Farmer Dave and Friends?
Yeah. So I don't think we're co-producing that anymore. We were for a while. So Matt and I, for Headroom Sessions, have puppet versions of ourselves, and those host our music series. And we decided that that would be fun in a children's show. And then I happened to cross paths with this guy, David Layden, who is a fantastic children's musician. I call him the modern Raffi. And we collaborated with him on some short clips for PBS. And that led to a collaboration with Denver Urban Gardens. So we had some videos showcasing different gardens that are in food deserts in Denver. And a lot of them were ran by refugee communities. So exposing kids to those corners of diversity that are around our city.
That's phenomenal.
It was rad. I really wish that I had the capacity to do more with that, but that's also on pbs12.org.
So that series, at least for the moment, isn't going to continue, or?
I'm sure it's going to continue. David is such a badass and cannot be stopped. And I love that. So I'm sure he's going to continue it. And I've been grant hunting a little bit for it. My forte, though, I'm learning I have a variety of skills, but asking for money is just not my jam. And I'm sure a lot of creatives experience that. But I definitely have to refer people to other people who can get them money.
Whose idea was it to do puppets as far as the intro and the in between each musical guest?
That's a good question. I think that Matt and I were just like drunk one night, and he was like, you know what would be cool if we were puppets? And that's like a lot of our creative conversations. It's like 3 beers and a joint. And we're like, you know what would be sick? So I'm sure the puppets were born from that. And then, yeah, you can't have puppets without a good children's show. So it was hard though, because our puppets on our music series are very crass. Like I cuss so much, puppet or not. And then we had our origin story for the puppets was originally that it was Matt and I accidentally drank mushroom tea. And then we land in like a puppet world. We have skits and skits about it that we weren't able to use. So yeah, translating that to a children's show, we had to be careful.
God, I found out what's wrong with our podcast. We need to have 2 beers and a joint before we start this bitch.
It's the magic combo for sure.
Well, I love that in the headroom sessions, those puppets. I thought that was brilliant. Like, God, you never see puppets anymore.
They're funny because it's just we're not puppet actors by any means. And I think that adds to the charm of it because you'll see the puppet like pause awkwardly, like, and now we're gonna, and it just like adds a realism to the puppets. So yeah, I recommend anybody play with puppets, but don't expect that you're gonna be a star just by having one.
No Jeff Dunham's in the making, huh?
Yeah, no.
One of the other shows that you produce is Colorado Inside Out, which is a political show discussion, right?
Yeah. So we have 4 different panelists that are journalists and activists and lawyers. Our core panelists are from Westward Magazine, the Independence Institute, which is more of a libertarian resource, and Colorado Politics. And then we have a rotation of new people that I book, which tend to be activists, and I'll throw in some attorneys and other people like that to keep the conversations going.
And you were brought in to, with all these shows that you've already produced that really kind of bring in, for lack of a better description, more of a youthful exuberance. That's why they want your voice in there, right? To like kind of make it.
Yeah. So youthful and also just general diversity. Diversity goes far beyond gender and race and things like that. It's different backgrounds, different stories. And they knew I was well connected in the community. I'm very boots on the ground kind of person who's constantly networking. So yeah, I think part of why I was brought on to that show is to bring not only younger voices, but just diversity. I mean, our panelists, like I was saying, have been there for like 30 years. And like are all the same generation white people. So, especially nowadays with the conversations we're highlighting, such as Denver housing situations and things that are being experienced by a variety of people, it's important to bring the people who are experiencing these things to the table.
Absolutely. Give everybody a voice, right? So you have a better sense of what's actually going on.
Definitely. Yeah. And I was afraid it would be awkward for a while. I don't want to tokenize anyone or think that they are being brought on just because of what they mark off in demographics. So that's been a big lesson for me, but that's again where vulnerability has come into play, where I say, just like I said to you guys, like it's very clear that we're lacking a lot of voices from different communities. And I think these communities deserve a platform. Would you like to be part of that?
Yeah, I think that's great.
You got to help along the narrative, right? For the longest time, whether you like it or not, if you're a white person, it's been a white person's perspective, and that's not the real world. And in order to understand what other people go through, whether it's being unhoused or being part of the LBGQ community, or, person of color, everybody needs to be able to tell their story, and people need to listen to these things. We've definitely learned a lot through this podcast, just having a conversation, things that I had never thought about before, because that's not my experience. But in order to kind of understand where other people are coming from, you got to have that conversation, kind of like we mentioned before, that you can't understand what someone else is going through unless you have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to figure out what organization I'm getting this from. But there's a slogan that's called, it says nothing about us without us. And I think that's totally fair. Having these conversations about people when they're not there to speak for themselves, that seems like kind of common sense, that you would need someone there who's experienced firsthand. Lately we've had a lot of conversations about, for example, recent headlines, the Elijah McClain settlement. Aurora settled on $15 million for Elijah McClain's family. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, settlements in the state. So it's big news, and it's easy to want to tackle just with the people we have. But do we really want a group of all of the same people discussing an issue like that without anybody else involved? It's kind of, it's not a good look, and that's for a good reason. Especially when we have access to people who are, it's local news, you just have to go around the corner in Denver and you can find people who were involved in the case, involved in the protests around when the tragedy happened. It doesn't take a ton to find these people.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's they got to be part of the conversation, and it can't be one-sided. It can't be a one-sided conversation. Like, why not bring all the people that come into play that this is affected into the conversation?
Yeah. And it seems like such a common sense thing, and people discuss it all the time, but to see it in action can be kind of rare. And I don't know if it's everywhere, but in Colorado, I do think we get stuck in our corners for sure. We have diversity, but I feel like Colorado's pretty segregated. So just taking those little steps to change that a bit.
It's good work. Good for you for being a part of that and helping that along, having some insight into all this.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to be somewhere where it's received.
And all this programming that you've been talking about can be found on the PBS 12 website, correct?
Yep. Yeah, so we have Generation Grit, Colorado Inside Out, and then we do a blog called Boombox, where I curate local music playlists.
Yeah, so is that what I saw today? I saw one as I was doing my Googling today. I brought up a blog that was released today, And I thought that was really, I loved it. I only listened to the playlist like through 5 or 6 songs, but I'm going to go back and listen to it probably tomorrow when I'm doing some editing. But playlists are a big deal for you, huh?
Love it. Yeah, that's definitely my creative outlet. It's nice. I've never really attached to like I'll dabble on the bass or I'll do some visual arts, I'll do some collaging or things like that. But playlists are the best combination of like mindless yet occupying. There, I don't know a better way to explain that. I just love curating. It's like a piece of art to me. So that playlist is definitely like poppy kind of beats based. But I try to do all different genres.
Just depending on your mood or
Yeah. So like that one that you saw today is the theme around it was kind of self-care. And I like in my self-care chill moments, I like chill hop kind of house beats. Whereas if I've done an activism playlist and that's more rock, punk rock, hip hop kind of stuff.
and did you approach PBS about doing this, or did they say, "Hey, you're so embedded into the music scene. Do you want to curate some playlists?" How did that happen?
They asked me to do it. Before that, I was doing playlists for a publication called Taste Culture. And I think they're still out there. So I was doing monthly playlists and blogs with them where I would dig into my personal life and end it with a playlist. And then PBS asked me to do the same for them.
And
How do you get these ideas for, like, let's say the next playlist? So how do you generate what the idea is going to be? And then how do you find music?
Well, I'm constantly creating playlists are like my diary. So I'm constantly creating playlists for different chapters in my life, for different things I'm trying to work through, for things I envision in the future. So once I get a few songs that attach to one of these concepts, I translate it locally and create it that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. So on the playlist that you'll put together for this podcast, because, the experience, obviously Ted Nugent.
Yeah, it's actually all Ted Nugent and Kid Rock with splashes of Creed. So
God,
Good.
big hits. It's a Nickelback. I don't know how you feel about Nickelback, but
Well, they have a couple good songs.
yeah, they have hits for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know about their deep tracks. I don't know if I've delved deep enough in the Nickelback to get a good feel for the deep tracks.
Oh man, now I'm curious. I don't know if I want to go down that path. Nickelback deep cuts.
I love the whole idea of a playlist, and I've never done it. Back in the day, we would do mixed tapes, right? So,
Same thing.
it was the same thing, except it was you didn't have everything at the fingertips, so you had to really search it out. You could make a playlist off the radio, if you had that.
Right.
I used to do that too. Yeah.
So-
growing up poor made me have access to things like that. So yeah, I would record tracks off the radio and make playlists. I remember the one that always started all my cassette tapes was Four Non Blondes. What's going on?
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I was going through, Todd has this huge collection of CDs, and I seen that he had some mixed tapes in there, like mixed DVDs. And one of them was Love Songs to Julie. And so I'd love to check that one out.
Cute.
I've made a few mixed tapes for girls that I dated back in my youth. I don't know if
So why do you have that
what's
one?
that?
Why do you have that one? Why does Julie have it?
He's making stuff up.
Oh.
Oh, that was totally made up. Sorry. I thought you would roll with it. Well, you did.
Oh, I missed that one. But I am curious about that because, okay, so in my laundry room at my apartment building, there's this CD case that got left there. My landlord said I could have it. But a lot of the CDs were this person's love songs to other people. So that was just a curiosity I've had. Like, why did you keep these? Did they give them back? Did you never give it to them? It's interesting.
That's always a possibility,
the,
like if you broke up with somebody, you get this bag of stuff, and then there may be that mixtape that you made for them, right?
Yeah. 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 Oh man. Yeah. Cause I went from cassette tapes to LimeWire. I'm sure I had some of those.
right. I forgot all about LimeWire. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's something
smokes.
I haven't heard of in a while.
Yeah. I learned a lot about life through LimeWire.
So you're of that generation and where, things were transitioning from physical stuff, which you obviously participated in. The physical, I like having a cassette, or I like an album or a CD. My favorite format's probably CD because that's the era that I grew up in. I do have a fairly decent size vinyl collection, and I have a bunch of tapes still, which I just had this discussion. Actually, I had a discussion yesterday with Cipriano because he just had found this morphine tape that he ordered online that somebody was selling. But I liked having that physical thing because, like Wes said, I like looking at the liner notes and, seeing when, where, who recorded on a particular song. Do you still do the physical thing, or are you more of a streaming gal at this point?
Ooh, I do a lot of Spotify for accessibility. I also love vinyls, but something I've been missing a lot is just like laying on a floor reading lyrics while I listen to music. I haven't done that in ages, and I've really been wanting to get that in that kind of flow state. I think that's something that I struggle with modern media is just getting in a state of concentration through an entire piece. That's really hard these days. So I stream, but I support full album listening, and I'm trying to do it more.
I feel like my kids, they missed out on the whole, and not that they haven't experienced it because they've experienced it through living in my own house, right? Hearing me play albums. I'm an album guy. Like I listen to an album. I don't just pick out songs. And, in this day and age, you can just, you can curate a playlist or you can just pick out certain songs. But when I'm thinking about like a concept of what that artist was thinking, I want to experience that as they, curated those songs into an album, whether it's a concept album or just the way that they wanted the songs to flow, right?
Yeah, yeah. I always forget how intentional that is until I listen to a whole album. And to your point with Cipriano, I saw his post about that. And just hearing the crackle of the cassette tape before the music started, that like triggered excitement in my brain to where it's just like this and these moments of anticipation that where you're especially like buying a CD, unwrapping it through the hellacious unwrapping, ripping it out, like all these tactile processes. I hope that youth still get the experience of
that excitement, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing like saving up your own money to go buy a CD, rushing home with it, ripping it open, reading every word, again, laying on the floor. Oh, yeah, can't beat it.
Exactly.
And your point about hearing the beginnings of the cassette is the same thing about vinyl. The beautiful thing about vinyl is when that needle hits the record and then you get a little bit of the dust sound and then all of a sudden the music comes in. It's just, I just love that sound where it just drops and then you're off.
Yes, totally. Yeah. I try to add a lot of fade in between songs on my Spotify. It doesn't do the same thing. Don't recommend it.
Right. Cause you want the song to have a little bit of breathing room between that song and the next song. Right.
Yeah. All that being said, I'm such a shuffle girl. That's how I try to get out of it. But everything is on shuffle for me. Even Netflix, I do the shuffle. So trying to find that balance.
Have you ever bought a piece of music that you had no idea what it was about or what songs were on there or anything without knowing anything about that group?
Yeah, that's how I discovered Garbage. When I was a kid, I spent a ton of time at the library, a ton. And you could check out CDs, So I would pick out CDs just based on covers or just randomly. So a lot of the music I discovered was, without knowing what they were. And I think that's how I became so accustomed to different genres.
So you mentioned Garbage, which I really like them. I've only seen them once, but they're coming next summer to the Levitt Pavilion. Did you know that?
I didn't. I saw they were on a tour recently that looked epic. I forgot who they were playing with. I think it was with Alanis Morissette, and those were two CDs that I would play back to back. So wish I made that. But yeah, I would love to see them
They're
live.
coming with Tears for Fears.
Oh,
Really?
I would totally see that. That's my Tears for Fears. They're my guilty pleasure.
I like
They're
Tears.
good.
Yeah, I like Tears for
Yeah.
Fears too. It brings back a
Yeah.
lot of memories from my youth.
Yeah. I actually, through PBS, I get free tickets to a lot of random stuff, but I actually saw Hall & Oates recently.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah, I went ironically and I had a blast. It was amazing. And Squeeze opened up for them, which was super fun too. Squeeze actually shredded. I didn't know they had that aspect, but yeah. Yeah, I love being surprised by music.
That's a great double bill right there.
Oh, it was killer. And I never realized how I was like, oh, this is funny, blah, 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 being, a shithead millennial. But I knew every word to every song. And I was enthusiastically singing and dancing to it. So really taught me a lesson. I had the same experience. I went, another time I went to a concert, quote unquote, ironically, was I went to Yanni at Red Rocks. And Yanni was incredible. I don't think I'll ever judge a musician again before I go, unless they're Kid Rock.
We can definitely judge Kid Rock.
Yeah.
What's a band that you saw that you were really disappointed?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's hard for me to be disappointed because the live music experience is so cool. I'm just so fascinated by music production and the lighting and everything. I don't know. I'd have to come back around to the Goo Goo Dolls again. They just really disappointed me all around. Personality, music, everything. And they were like iconic, like I said, romance music for my generation. So
I saw Death Cab for Cutie at the Fillmore. And luckily I'd won those tickets, but it was hands down the worst concert I've ever seen in my entire life.
oh no.
What made it the worst? What was it? Production? Was it? Did they get drunk halfway through and couldn't remember the words?
No, that was
Tom Petty.
That was Tom Petty.
Oh
I said
no.
that.
On his last tour. And I was so glad I saw him because I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. I always have been. And he got drunk midway through the concert. A storm rolled through, and so they had to like shut everything down for about a half an hour or so. And when he came out, he was obviously wasted. And I didn't realize that he was dealing with this cracked hip, that he was in a lot of pain and stuff.
Oh man.
So after the fact, I gave him a pass, but I was a little disappointed, because there was a point where he was just completely lost. And the Heartbreakers are such a phenomenal band of musicians. They got him back on track. It was actually, when I think about it in retrospect, it was actually phenomenal what they did, because they just went into this full on jam as he kind of lost his way, like mid song, and they took it into a whole other direction and kind of brought him back in. And so that was phenomenal. I was just a little surprised, but that wasn't disappointing. I'm so happy that I got to see him before he passed. And that was one that really hit me hard. Like, certain musicians, bands that you grew up with, when they pass or something happens, I've felt really, really sad about that. And Tom Petty was definitely one of those moments where I was like, oh, son of a bitch. Like, I just can't believe it,
Yeah, that is hard to embrace. Yeah, when I was about to leave Hall & Oates a little early, this other woman who was there through PBS was like, look, you're going to regret this. Like, this is going to be one of your last times that you're going to see them, and they're going to be fully functional playing this music. So I stuck around and I'm glad I did, but that can be heartbreaking for sure.
That was really beautiful that she took a moment and said, hey, don't go, like stick it out till the very end. Because it's easy to do that, right? With concerts, like, like, okay, I feel like they're wrapping up. Let's make the mad dash to the car, or,
Yep.
it's probably the last song, but you never know. They might come back, for one more encore, or they might play something. They might dig deep, right? And you never
Yep.
know what you might miss out on. But that was brilliant that she was like, hey, stick it out. You might not ever get a chance to see these guys again, and see them when they're still like, they sound really good and they're performing still, at their top level.
Yeah, totally. Especially a lot of bands that I know now who are around my age or just a little bit older are on their like third or fourth farewell tour. So I just like don't believe it anymore. So, but she's like, no, this is real. You need to embrace this. And I'm definitely grateful for that.
Motley Crue. I saw them on what was supposedly their last tour, right? Which we all knew that was baloney anyway. I'd never seen them because I grew up in Alaska, right? They were terrible, absolutely terrible. That was actually probably the second worst concert. But what redeemed it was Alice Cooper was phenomenal. So
nice. Black Sabbath was, I didn't have high expectations for that one. Didn't know all their music. Ozzy still rocked it. So that was crazy. But yeah, bad shows. I think bad shows are tough, especially since I'm not a musician. It's hard for me to judge.
So here's mine, and probably Todd will know this one, Bob Dylan, but it wasn't, I don't think it was his fault. The sound, the acoustics in this goddamn stadium in Rapid City, they luckily just opened a new one. So hopefully it's better. I couldn't understand you can't understand a damn word he sings anyway. It even like exacerbated it. I couldn't even, there was a handful of songs I could say, oh, I know this song. This is Lay Lady Lay, but I was like, I don't even know what this is. It's just bullshit. Horrible.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention Bob Dylan too. That was one of the first concerts I worked. And I remember being in the audience and I didn't really know him extensively. I knew he was famous, but I was like, this is what everybody's so stoked about. I don't know. But now I listen to more albums and I get it more. But yeah, live, it was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. He was horrible. He had one joke. He told it in the middle and that was it. The rest, I mean, the kudo things is he sang nonstop, but it was just like, it sounded like the last song. It was just horrible. But like I said, I don't necessarily blame him. I think it might've been the acoustics of our stadium at the time, or the arena.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll start to wrap this up, Elle. So how important was PBS in your life growing up as a child?
Ooh, doggy. Very important. Like I mentioned, growing up, I didn't have to go to school. That wasn't a rule that was enforced. But I still was a kid who wanted to learn. So I would watch adult programming on PBS. I watch it all the way from kids programming in the morning to the operas at night. And I learned so much through it, learned so much cultural relevancy. So it was basically my homeschooling for a chunk of my childhood.
What were some of your favorite PBS programs growing up?
So I loved the classics, and then there was this kids show called Zoom.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah.
I loved Zoom.
Yeah, that show changed my world. I was like, I could do this because it's a show where kids do different activities and it's like kind of like school experiments that they just put on a TV show, or they'll do different dance moves and stuff. And the production level was mid-grade at best, but it was so entertaining. And I always wanted to be part of something like that. So Zoom was a crucial one for me. I think it was on PBS. My mom and I used to watch Lawrence Welk a lot. And I loved music variety shows, which is what I'm doing now. So that was definitely influential. The Empathy of Mr. Rogers, just teaching emotional intelligence to kids. That was a huge one for me and something that I try to emulate as well. And then, yeah, like their concerts and ballets. Although I went to a ballet recently called Shen Yun. Have you heard of that?
No.
Well, I found out after I took my mom to it. It's like the first fancy thing she's ever been to. And it turns out it's like a cult. So it's like they advertise it as life in ancient China before communism took over. But then they have these singers come out that are like, atheism is morphing your mind. Evolution is a myth, like just blatant statements like that, not even like trying to be subtle. And it's like, join us, DAFA, blah, blah, blah. And I'm there with like my Christian mom, but she was just like smiling and clapping the whole time. She didn't care.
That's
but
funny.
that was the kind of stuff that was also on PBS back when I was growing up. So
I love that you mentioned Zoom because I loved that show growing up.
it was so good, so entertaining. And again, I love variety shows. I think I've been temporarily diagnosed with ADD. I'm sure it's real, but I think that gives me a knack for things like Zoom, where it was like skit and like SNL and MTV. Like I need to move fast, and Zoom was great for that.
Can you speak the Zoom language? I forget what they call it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It was just Pig Latin, right?
I don't know if it was. They had a name for it.
Yeah, but I think the rules were similar to Pig Latin,
Yeah.
where it's just like moving letters around a little bit or something.
Yeah.
But I even remember their like Canadian zip code and stuff. V6B 4G3.
It's funny what
That's funny.
Yeah,
sticks.
I don't remember their language, but I remember their Canadian address.
I have fond memories of watching Lawrence Welk growing up with my parents, and in the era where they had those variety shows. I think that's something that really should be brought back, you know?
Yeah, those were last. And some really, really iconic talent came through there. So it's like funny because it's like cheesy or whatever, but it's also pretty serious. They had some serious talent through there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. You look at some of the old Johnny Cash show programs. Holy cow.
And he was bringing in people like the Doors. I mean,
yeah, he was pretty bringing out stuff that people wouldn't expect. So
yeah. I got one question I'd like to throw out.
Yeah.
And it can be anything, but what brings you hope?
Ooh. I think, like I mentioned, seeing youth grasp onto concepts that generations before haven't. I think my day-to-day interactions with people who are all trying to better themselves, and the solidarity of community is a big one.
So you're hopeful for the future?
Yeah. I should have delayed it like that.
That was a little bit of hesitation there, Elle.
Yeah, I am hopeful for the future. I think that people have more to them than they advertise. And yeah, I believe in a general sense of good.
I think you have to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to find it, you know, sometimes you got to search for it, but it's out there.
Yeah.
I know where it's not. In a Kid Rock video.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, talk to us. I mean, you obviously have this sense of wanting to play a positive role in the community and bring people together, that connection. And you obviously are very much an activist. Where does that come from?
So a lot of I can credit both my parents. My parents met, part of the reason why my siblings are so much older than me is I was like a hippie love child later in life. So my dad was a beatnik, my mom was a hippie. They both bonded over wanting to make the world a better place. So I was taught by both of them some activism traits. My mom ran for school board in Estes Park. She was named by the newspaper as the Don Quixote of Estes Park, which was bittersweet. And I think just experience, like I said, the experience of feeling like an outsider in a lot of situations made me passionate about inclusion. When I moved out of my mom's house into my brother's, I went to a very wealthy school where I felt very isolated and met people who were also on the outskirts. So learning those stories and wanting to make everyone feel valued.
And what are some of the other issues that you see in Denver or Colorado that you think that need to be addressed, that are near and dear to your heart outside of the unhoused population?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. I think education, that's one across the country. I think things are really coming to a head right now where we're really we're experiencing the consequences of mistreating educators and mistraining some. So I think that's a pretty important one. And the fact that we don't have a lot of alternatives to the standard education. I think I was kind of blessed in that department. And a lot of them tie to just housing because that branches out to so many things. That branches out to racial inclusion, accessibility, disability. It's kind of a crossroads of all the different issues. And I also think that Hancock sucks. That's something I'm passionate about. Yeah, I'm over our mayor. And getting to know city council a bit. I worked for a while in an organization that interacted directly with city council. So just certain individuals that I know are trying to progress things and the things that they're up against adds a whole other lineup of issues.
Desert Island playlist.
Desert Island playlist.
You don't have to give me the whole list, but what music or what bands would definitely make the list?
Oh, man.
And obviously and that's a pretty, that's really hard to like put together. I get it. But there's got to be certain bands that, during the course of your life that you definitely would have to have in that playlist. And there's no parameters, like it could, because you're going to be on this desert island for a long time. So it's not like just 20 songs or whatever, but just a handful.
That's so hard because I get tired of music. I feel like I hyper focus on different genres every few months.
Yeah.
And then once I'm done hyper focusing, I like move on and never want to hear it again. But there are some things that stick. I would say,
what if we simplified it? What if we said, pick some music that resonates with a certain emotion that you're feeling? So if you're happy, what do you want to hear?
Ooh. Well, I think one that has stuck with me for a long time, and this could be totally cliche for being a woman my age, but good old Fleetwood Mac. They always cheer me up a little bit. And like the drama they lived, that's really fun to think about too. And then as far as like happy music, I really am embracing a lot of instrumental music more, especially since I do get tired of some stuff. So yeah, I've recently been into things like just classical mixes and things like that because it allows you to kind of think while you're listening. And then lyrically, an artist called Laura Marling has been really impactful to me the last few years. So yeah, instrumental, Fleetwood Mac, Laura Marling, and then probably Rage Against the Machine. I just love them. I've never gotten over them.
Is that to just like kind of get that aggression out or that energy get amped up?
Yeah. My go-to karaoke song is Killing in the Name of. And part of why I love it is because people don't expect me to sing that at all. And it's just so invigorating to just scream, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, like 10 times into a crowd. Like that never gets old.
I love that. That seems perfect for you, actually. I mean, somebody that's impassioned and cares about activism and yeah, that just seems like the perfect band that would have to be in there.
Total adrenaline rush. And I just love a good breakdown, and they have them in every song. So
people want to find out more about what you do, where would they go as far as websites?
So pbs12.org for my television productions, headroomsessions.com for our individual sessions. So that's separated by artists and showcases every musician we've had. And then Instagram at Denver Dabbler.
That's your handle on Instagram. And then Headroom Sessions, they also have an Instagram, yeah?
Yeah. I need to be better about updating it, but we do have one.
Fantastic. Elle, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time with you this evening. It's been a great conversation. It's been fun. It's been educational. Thank you so much for what you do in the community and connecting people and making people more aware. You're doing fantastic work.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to be on here with you guys. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and it's great to meet you. And I hope to be able to meet you in person in the future, and maybe have one of those 2 beers and a joint. Then we can talk about other things.
Yeah, cheers. That sounds great. Come up with great ideas.
There you go.
And we'll listen to Kid Rock from the first track to the last.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I'll have all the pertinent information in this week's episode notes as always. For the Tenet Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.